Good morning, Raptor Freaks. LEX here after a loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, 2-point loss at the very end. Very disappointing ending. And once again, one of these games where we lose very disappointingly at the end of the game. It's just been that kind of year. And what I want y'all to listen to me. Maybe we can get all these kind of losses all condensed into this one season for like 5 years going forward. That would be great because these kind of losses, you're supposed to get your share every year, but it really does seem like we're getting our overabundance of share. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. And let's pick it apart and figure it out and react to this game from last night. A 2-point loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves in Minnesota. We could talk all about all the factors that favored the Raptors, but there are also factors that did not favor the Raptors also in some ways. All right, let's start with Basketball Rewind. He says, I do not want to be called a hater because I said it before. This team isn't able to compete in its current form. Shouldn't be trying to fight for a play-in spot. People are now changing expectations. Yeah, I think that this whole season, people have adjusted expectations up and down at different times, at different places, obviously with how the team's doing. And that's very fair. But in some ways, I want to talk about this real quick. There's an article on ESPN about the Golden State Warriors right now. And in some ways, I know people may say, oh, we're not the same as them, but in a lot of ways we are. They have the same team as they've had for years and years right now in a lot of ways. The same core guys, important guys, very much like us to a degree. But they're having a really bad time winning right now. Is it what is their problem? What is going on with them? The ESPN article isn't like framing them as, they need to blow it up, they need to change things. They're framing it as they believe in themselves and they're going to figure it out and work through it. And, there are a lot of parallels to this situation with the Golden State Warriors and the Toronto Raptors right now. Both teams have been championship teams in the last couple of years. Both teams have cores from those championship years to a degree. And also both teams have had really bad years in between championships and now. So it's like, why is it we can look at the Warriors in this kind of way and be patient and be like trusting and be like, I believe in them, and we don't totally believe in these guys? Last night was a weird loss. It was very, very poorly managed by the end of the game. In fact, for the last 7:49 of the game, pretty much for the last almost 8 minutes of the game, the Raptors scored only 4 points. 4 points over almost 8 minutes, the last 8 minutes of the game. They were up by 12 at that point, and they ended up losing by 2. So they got outscored. What is that? So that means the other team scored 18 points while we scored 4 or something like. No, that's not right. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah, that would be right. So the other team scored 18 points while we scored 4 points in the last 8 minutes of the game. Now, that's a big problem. I don't understand how our offense went so stagnant. Was it that Minnesota's defense just really ratcheted up and played really a lot tougher? What was going on there? Of course, people want to point fingers at Fred. All the Fred haters are still trying to figure out ways to point fingers at him for last night. Somebody broke it down. They have a list of all the possessions the Raptors had during that stretch of time, and I will just read it real quick. Starts off with Juancho misses a 3. So this starts right around where Juancho misses a 3 in the 4th. Pascal turnover. OG misses a floater. Pascal layup assisted by Fred. Okay, that was one of the made baskets, one of the 4 points. Pascal misses a floater. Gary Trent misses a 3. Turnover by Scottie. Scottie misses a layup. Scottie misses a layup. Pascal misses a pull-up jumper. Turnover by Scottie. Scottie layup blocked. Gary misses a 3. Fred misses a layup. Scottie Barnes dunk assisted by Fred. That is the other 2 points during this period of time. And then 2 OG missed threes. Game over. And that is all the different shots we took during those 8 minutes. And as you can see, there's a lot of diversity in who's missing, what kind of shots they're missing, that there is a mixture of missed free threes, missed layups, and also turnovers involved in all of this. So I don't understand why the execution is so poor in the last couple minutes. One of the main reasons is because these guys are more tired than the other team. That if the other team is able to increase their defensive intensity all of a sudden, that we're not able to match it, and we're looking tired. And I still believe, like in the beginning of the game, I thought Nick did a really good job with the rotations. That it's like, whoa, we see Joe Weiskamp came out there, and that was amazing to see Joe, and he was fantastic. And then we saw Thad return to the lineup, and we saw like pretty good rotational numbers after the first half. And I was like, Nick's doing a good job with the rotations. But in the second half, I felt like he played the starters too long in some ways, and they did get tired out. And then that was a big reason why we struggled so badly offensively in the last 8 minutes of the game. Is a lot of times that's what I'm going to blame. Is if these guys can't execute at the end of the game offensively, I'm going to blame them being tired for being overplayed. So when it gets down to it, what happened last night? I'm sad to say it, and this has happened 2 games in a row now. Nick Nurse got outcoached. He got outcoached by Chris Finch, his one of his nemesis, somebody he's been coaching against for decades, and really does have somebody get up against. Chris Finch versus Nick Nurse is kind of a grudge match in some ways. And it's a bragging rights kind of thing. So Nick really wants to win this game, but so does Chris Finch. And it's really interesting how he employed the tactic to get the points that that got the win for them. The 2 points by D'Angelo Russell were made from a really cheap way of drawing a foul. It's that thing where Fred has a little bit of his hand on the shoulder of D'Angelo Russell, and he swings the ball around, and he makes the referees call a foul. Now that is not for free throws. Thank goodness, because it's not a free 3-point shot. It's just a 2-point shot, but it's still a dirty, like it's just kind of a cheap way to get points no matter what. And unfortunately, Fred's got to think about this and not maybe guard that way or something. I don't know. It just seems really cheesy. The Elam ending is very cheesy in a lot of ways because of the way games can end with just free throws like that. And this swing through way of drawing a foul would really screw up the Elam ending and make it like really stupid, even more so. So, NBA, you may want to look at the rules about this swing through foul and how you guys are calling it and different things, because that's an easy way to just get to the foul line and get a couple foul shots. Now, as much as that was very smart and genius and such a brilliant play by Minnesota and D'Angelo Russell, we couldn't find any kind of brilliance or ideas or ways to put the ball in the basket. And it's really, really concerning, the drought of how we couldn't score in the last 8 minutes of the game. 4 points over 8 minutes over the last. That's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. And I do not totally chalk it up to Minnesota just having such a great defense all of a sudden. It sounds crazy. Now, about Van Hoot's first comment here, circling back to it. I don't know if this team is able to compete in this current form. It's hard for me to gauge completely. I still lean on the side that they just need to figure it out and something will click, and then they'll be able to be fine with this personnel. I know that there's a lot of evidence that shows that may not be true recently, but for some reason, I still believe this. I still very much believe that this team can get it together and can figure it out. Part of what's happening is we've had such a bad first half of the season with injuries and stuff like that. There's games that are mixed in with losses that are solely from the really bad stuff. And then there's the normal games that we would have lost anyway if we had been full steam and kicking butt. We're just scheduled losses. And in some ways, it's hard to pick apart which ones are which. Like, are these losses that we're getting just because we're having a really bad season because of injuries? Or no, at this point, you guys say, well, we don't have injuries. We have the team that we're supposed to have, and we're playing them. And sometimes the wins and losses are going to be just coming anyway. And I'm not saying last night was supposed to be a loss, because it very much should have been a win. And it is very disappointing. We could look at all the different factors. They traveled from Denver the day before. They were missing their Twin Towers, a couple of very key players that are very good for them. And once again, we lose to a team that's missing their best players. And it's disheartening. Sure, it's real easy to point to what Van Hoot is saying, that this team cannot compete at the highest level to beat NBA teams. Well, I'd like to take another test, and that's tomorrow. And tomorrow will be a very good test, and this will be one of the best tests to see exactly where we're at. Because if we can, all right, there's a couple different ways it could go against Boston tomorrow. We could get blown out, and very much will provide evidence for, yeah, we're just not that good. We're very bad. We could play with them and play very close with them and give them a good competition, and just lose by little. And maybe people would be, well, we hung with the Boston Celtics, and we can't be that horrible. But in a lot of ways, we didn't win. Or we could beat the number one team in the East tomorrow. And that would change a whole lot of different narratives and different things about the Raptors. That's the thing. Golden State couldn't beat them last night in overtime. And that's part of the reason why they wrote this article about the Golden State Warriors this morning on ESPN. So I don't know. It's really weird. And I have no idea how they're trying to gauge this team. Well, first of all, what matters to Bobby Webster and Masai Ujiri about this team, and what needs to be changed? What are the glaring holes and problems that are going on right now? Are our problems more involved on offense, or are they more involved on defense? It's very hard to say at this point. In a lot of ways, it's real easy to say, okay, yeah, it is the offense. But in some ways, right now, our biggest problem is our defense, y'all. And I think that it may have something more to do with the league and how it's changing overall than us. That it may not totally be our problem. We could be absolutely perfect on defense, rotating completely right, not letting anybody on the other team get open shots, and still lose in some ways because the NBA is now made as an offensive league. And that in the last couple of years, we've been a defensive team, and we've been maybe one of the last really great defensive teams in some ways, because the league is just going to get rid of defensive style basketball. It's not good for TV, and they want high scoring. They want these crazy numbers that everybody's putting up right now. They really enjoy this because they can really put a spotlight on it, and it's a highlight league. And in some ways, that is hurting the league because the fundamentals and defense are not as important, and they're actually getting dulled, the sharpness that you can have on that end of the floor. That they made the rules so wide open for offensive players to be successful that building your team around defense is folly, that you're not going to be able to have a seal on defense no matter what. And that these games are going to be scoring races no matter what. You cannot play a defensive Eastern Conference kind of game anymore in today's NBA. The game is changing to a West Coast kind of game. And we need to adjust with it. I think that this is what we're going to have to think about and pivot towards, Bobby Webster, is that, defense may have been great. And sure, you still need it to a degree, but it's not king, and it's not going to win championships anymore. Because you can't stop anybody anymore. You have to outscore them because they're going to score no matter what. And the problem with us right now is we're shooting blanks too often on offense. 50% of the time, it's a blank or missing. And the more you're higher percentage on offense, you're going to win this league at this point. So it really is the kind of thing where we need to start reorienting our team because of this trend. The defense is dead in the NBA, obviously. I think it just died in like the last year or so. And this year it's officially dead. And it really is from subtle rule changes that the NBA has made in the last few years in the summertime. They make a couple of rule changes and come back in, and then start training the players on what is allowed on defense and what isn't. And we've gotten to this point that honestly, I don't understand it. I know Nick Nurse is a defensive guru, and that he knows all kinds of crazy ways to shut people down. Well, they're impossible to do at this point. It really does seem like that this team cannot be sealed up and tied up in a nice little bow defensively anymore. That you're just going to have to get as many guns as possible, line up across, and have a shootout, a major offensive shootout. And that's how games will be decided, because that's what it seems like the way it's going. One of the big things about last night that killed us, Nick Nurse said after the game, was the streaks of threes that these guys went on. Late in the game, their two important guards, Russell and Edwards, both had streaks of making threes that absolutely killed us and got them back in the game. Well, we didn't have any kind of counterbalance of a three streak on our side from any of our guys. OG missed important 3-point attempts late in the game that could have gone in and won us a game, to be very quite frankly and honest. Fred, Scottie, Pascal, these guys did not score in the fourth quarter. They had a real hard time. And I'm not saying, once again, that it's the defense of Minnesota, because they don't have a super talented defensive team. They have young athletic players that don't necessarily have a lot of expertise, but the Raptors have an offense that completely sputters and does not produce, is incapable of making points. And that is probably the biggest determinant in why we lose at this point. Some people will say, oh, it's our defense, we can't stop them. Well, we can't score. That is really the biggest problem here. And once again, him not playing deep minutes off the bench or a lot of rotation off the bench hurts us, because you need more people shooting guns and shooting shots to make more shots. You rely on 6 or 7 guys that get tired and they're just absolute shite at the end of the game. And that's a lot of it. You know what? We're all changing expectations, but I'm not willing to say this or that. Still, I want them to make the play-in. Still, I know a lot of people say the play-in's a waste of time, but it's good experience for our players. And it's like I said, if they win in the play-in, they get in the first round, we're in the playoffs, and that's important. We want these guys to get as much playoffs experience as possible, and we're not that far out of the play-in, so there's still a lot to be playing for. And I'm not throwing my hands up and just crumpling up the paper and throwing out the season. There's too many games to be played, and there's too many opportunities to get more W's and change good feelings around this team. Callie's saying, well, that loss hurts. Love Pascal, but he was forcing his game all night. Should have been benched. Scottie was amazing. And Joe, I don't like who Nick Nurse played late in the game last night. I thought, once again, OG looked really flat and ineffective in all kinds of different ways. And I did not like him playing at the end of the game. I thought Gary should have been out there near the end of the game. I don't really feel like he was he playing at the end of the game? I don't feel like he was out there, or he disappeared. We barely saw Gary Trent take any shots late in the game. I think that would have helped things. Fred, he wasn't even shooting threes near the end of the game either. In some ways, you want to counterbalance Russell and Edwards bombing threes with Van Vliet and Trent bombing threes. So why weren't these guys getting open shots on the outside? OG is definitely in a slump as far as energy and just how he's playing and stuff. He's just not playing very sharp. And I don't know if he's the best person to be making the play call for at the very end of the game. That it has Gary Trent Jr. written all over it in Minnesota. And him being a baller and wanting to make a big clutch shot in his hometown. So I don't understand why OG's number was called at the end of the game in some ways. I know he doesn't shoot to miss and all this kind of stuff, but in some ways his confidence, it's not that his confidence isn't good. He's just not playing that well. And I wouldn't have relied on him at the end of the game like that. I would have given it again to Fred and let everybody get pissed at him if he had missed it, or Gary. Those were the two guys. I wouldn't have given it to Pascal either. I think you're right that he is forcing things to a degree. And part of the problem is that, he had a lot of assists last night. And I have to give a lot of credit to Pascal in that way. He had 9 assists, 13 points, 6 of 16 from the field, 7 rebounds, but 4 turnovers. And 13 points is not enough scoring in a high-scoring game for the Raptors. Our number one guy needs to get over 20 points to help carry enough water for us to have the point total that's higher at the end of the game. And there's just a little bit more he could have done. 6 of 16 is not good enough. But, Siakam, when he gets down there in the paint and he has so many guys around him, he's not finding people outside at sometimes. I know the 9 assists are really good, but there's often times where he screws up. He's holding the ball too much and then he loses it, or he doesn't find the open person that would have the easy basket that's near him. This is an area that he'll always, and all these guys will always be able to improve at. Passing out the double team and finding the open man is something that is a skill that you continuously have to get better and better at, because the double team will come at you from different ways. It may come with different numbers. It may come in all kinds of different ways. And you just got to understand those kind of ways that they double, the best way to pass out of them to get to the open person. And there was a little bit of force in it. You're right, because he was trying to beat like 2 or 3 guys with really poor shot. And Pascal, pass it out of the double team. When it comes, pass it, please. Tom Duga's got the morning post again with the U. I hate seeing that. I hate seeing that, Tom. G saying Scottie was great and Joe may be a gem. Defending the three has been an issue. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, listen, we had bad trouble defending the three last year. These guys are really good athletes. And I don't know. It's hard to break this all down. They made threes when we did make threes, and that was an issue. All right, well, I'll do my 3 stars real quick since G brought this up. My number one star for last night is Scottie Barnes, 29 points. You know what? He's in this period right now where he's having his greatest game of his NBA career, like every game. Like he had his best game of his NBA career last game, and now he's had his best game of his NBA career last night, if you ask me. 29 points, 5 assists, 8 rebounds, 2 steals, 11 of 15 from the field, 6 of 7 from free throw line. Shot way better from the free throw line this time. And the 11 of 15, he just couldn't miss. And he's just so dominant down around the basket with the dunks and the putbacks. And just everything that he's doing down there is just really crazy. When I saw Scottie as a young player after the draft, when we drafted him, I saw his body frame and I was like, this kid's got really wide shoulders and he has a big frame. But I didn't realize, because like often young players, when they come in the league, they shy away from contact and they want to, like, they're scared of it. He's not like that. That's the crazy thing about him. And part of the reason why he's so advanced is that he invites the contact. In fact, he initiates it. He makes it. And that's crazy because he's definitely not like a Bargnani or a Bosch, a very finesse, non-contact, ooh, don't touch me kind of guy. This is a guy, he's like, I'm ready to mix it up. And I don't care who is mixing it up with me, Naz Reid, Brook Lopez, Zubac. I'll mix it up with the biggest guys in the league. And that's really commendable and crazy. This, once again, the huge bright spot is Scottie Barnes. And the future and the potential of him is crazy. And I also, once again, want to tie this to him. The losing and the things that are happening right now are part of a chaos that are kind of like with a thing where he is a uprising leader on our team. And in some ways, his leadership and him taking the flag and leading us is part of why we're losing. Is that it's not totally like veteran or experienced in some ways. And then you also got these other guys like Pascal and Fred. They're kind of taking a back seat in some ways to Scottie. And it's just not adding up to the winning formula. Now, a lot of it really is just our offensive drought. But I want y'all to realize that the growing pains of winning and losing for the Raptors right now very much have to do with the young development of Scottie, him figuring himself out and finding his feet. In fact, in some ways, our whole team is an avatar of him. And that in some ways, what's happening with our team is unsettled, partly because of his youth and him figuring it out. But the more he figures it out, well, this is going to be great because the team that avatar around him at the team will do better. And we will get a better winning percentage over time. It's just he's figuring it all out. He's figuring so much out right now and so quickly. And it's reverberating out into the outcomes for the team also. It's like he's a big puzzle piece. We got to figure out how to fit it in there the most effectively, the most efficiently. And the more we discover that, the more W's will come. It's just that it's not totally effective or efficient right now. We have to be patient and understand that this isn't broken. This team isn't messed up. There's just there's a couple of ingredients in the recipe that just don't taste right. And if we just switch it just a little bit, it's going to be fine. And we're going to kick so much ass. So really understand we're closer than further away from it. It may not feel like we're closer to being a good top team and winning team because of how the outcomes of the games are going right now. But we really are. We're really close. And there's just a couple things holding us away from it. And, what I described is part of it. It may not seem like it's directly causing it, but it is in some ways. That you have a second-year player on his broad shoulders. We're putting so much on him now. And that in some ways that has to do with some of the things. I'm not saying that we're losing because of Scottie. I'm saying that because Scottie is an up-and-coming leader on this team and he has growing pains, that is partly why we're losing. But there's good things that are happening. Like he's stepping up and he's taking the team on his shoulders and going and getting these baskets at key times. There were a couple of times up and down the court where Scottie was so dominant. he had something happen down at the defensive end that was disappointing, but then he got pissed off and he came right back down the other end and dunked it on them. So there's all kinds of really, really good signs about him wanting to be the man, being a superstar, being able to control the game. And these are these are the early growing pains of all that. Partly, yeah. My second star is Fred. Fred was fantastic. Once again, he's continued this streak of really good play. 7 of 13 from the field. I love the above 50% shooting. 4 of 6 from 3-pointers. 7 of 7 at the free throw line. 10 assists with only 2 turnovers, 2 steals, a rebound, and a block. 25 points for Fred. Fred was really kind of, once again, the dueling guy with Scottie as far as helping to score for our team. If the other side had D'Angelo and Anthony, we had Scottie and Freddie. And I really like a lot of what Fred did. But, he, once again, just like Pascal, him and Pascal need to step up in the last 5 minutes and do a lot of the scoring for us. They need to figure out ways to get points late, because they have to be those guys to carry us in a lot of ways. They should be. Scottie was trying, but he's still young. My third star is Joe Weiskamp. And I love this. What I was going to say, if we'd won, is I like being in the W's camp, because I like that nickname. It's all about the W's on Scottie's Twitch, and he's W's camp. I like that. Let's play. I want to be in the W's camp with W's. 3 of 4 shooting from Joe, 12 minutes. 3 of 3 from the 3-point line. 1 assist, plus 10 with 9 points. I normally won't put a guy with such few stats in the top 3 stars, but we've been crying out for Joe Weiskamp's debut, and we got it. And he was great. Those shots that he took weren't easy threes, and he nailed them, all 3 of them. I think he's going to get to play some more. I don't think he played bad, and I think that he has earned himself the next stint in the next game. So we probably will see him play against Boston tomorrow. Really good to see Thad Young out there also, as I said. So, yeah, those are my 3 stars. Scottie, Freddie, and Joe. Those are my 3 stars for last night. Let's see. Tom Duke saying, should have known something was up after Boucher and Pascal's interviews. Tom's talking about these midday interviews they did yesterday. Now, what I want to talk about with that is don't read into that too much. They were low energy, and they did look like that they were feeling kind of like not very up. Well, I want to say this, Tom. They flew from Milwaukee to Minnesota. There's been a little bit of time changing and shifting over and over, and they're probably a little bit exhausted from this trip. And we just caught them on a real downtime. Maybe that we caught them exactly after practice, where they had just ran around like crazy, and they just looked a little low energy at this point. Some people are reading into it too much, like they're defeated and that they've given up and they don't give a shit. No, that's not true. They can't play the way they did last night and, be like not trying. I know that it seems like they weren't trying near the end. There is a little fishy. And if we are doing a stealth tank, bravo. You guys did a very good job of making sure you lost. And as Eric Kareem put it on Twitter, if the goal is to get Scottie to continue to develop and get better and lose this season to get a good draft pick, we checked all the marks last night. We were super successful because we stealth tanked, and Scottie had a really good development game last night. So in some ways, that yay, woo, we lost again for the tank people. They're very happy about that. So we lost again. Woohoo! That's so great. All right, I'm a fun guy saying we are just simply bad. Yesterday really hurt, man. I just sat there in shock and bottled up anger. I'm so done, man. Well, fun guy, please listen. If you don't want to watch for a little bit, I understand. This is a frustrating season. And as I put it, this is like a season of horrors for losses. We're getting all kinds of different flavors of disappointment and a bitter defeat in the end of the game in really weird, fucked up ways. Like I said, if we can get these games out of the way now and not have any of these games in the years to come, that's great. In some ways, I wanted that from the Tampa year. I was like, let's get all this horrible shit out of the way while we're in Tampa and dealing with this bad situation. And hopefully things will be better. And the next year, we had caught a lot of breaks last year in the reverse. So that's how maybe we look at it. There's plus and minuses years. Tampa year, down year, bad year. The next year, boom, we kill it with Scottie's rookie year. this year, kind of a down year. Maybe it all balances out in that way. It's a year-to-year thing, and we're just having a negative year with a lot of situations where they just don't go our way, and we have narrow losses. Well, hopefully, all of that stuff that balances in the law of averages will be all good wins next year. I don't know. That's kind of what I wish for. Is all right. We're going to have all these bad losses. Let's go ahead and have them all in one season, and hopefully never have them for like another 3 years. How about that? Would you take that deal as far as things? It's like, let's get rid of these developing stupid losses that piss everybody off, put them all in this one season, but we won't have any for like the next 3 years after this. I would take that deal. If we could have these learning lessons in a developing year, all in condensed in 1 year and not spread out over years, like where we have a game like this next year. So, you know what? We are bad. I won't disagree with saying we're just simply bad. In some ways, we really are a bad NBA team, but we have good players and we have a good idea what we should be doing, and we can show and do it at times. That's just the problem. I don't know exactly what's going on with what's happening with this team. I don't know what we are trying to do this season. It's not totally clear what we're trying to do this season. Are we trying to get a good draft pick? No, we wouldn't try and do that. We try and win. Are we looking like we might get a good draft pick? Well, the chances of us getting a top 4 draft pick are like 30% right now. Hey, that's once again, we just want to spin it however positive, good way for the Raptors, no matter what, in winning and losing. And in the losing right now, it's draft pick. Ronadan is saying, even if this team rebounded, this team will just be a first round exit. Yeah, that's probably true. But who knows? Maybe not. Maybe we really catch fire and we're very like steamrolling, and we are able to actually get out of the first round. That's not totally out of the question. It'd be really tough, and it'd probably mean we'd beaten a top seed and on their home court. But once again, I still think that this is really important because Scottie starts so much. You know, we can always say Scottie was a starter from the beginning of his career. Well, Scottie was also in the playoffs from the beginning of his career. This is something that, in a way, we want to keep a streak of him being in the playoffs every single year he plays in the league. If we can make that happen, there's some prestige to that. And some people will say, well, that sets you up to be a mediocre team that's not good enough to actually be in the upper echelon of playoff teams. And you're not good, you're not bad enough to get a really good quality draft pick. You're just in purgatory in the middle. I don't agree with that totally. I think that we have upward mobility just because of development with Scottie and Precious, and that this upward mobility is still on its way up, and we just haven't even like taken like advantage of that upward mobility totally. In fact, we're having more problems, like what I described just a little bit ago, with the development and figuring it all out right now. But once that all gets figured out, then we'll get the good stuff and the goals from it. And that's what I feel like people are not realizing, is that we could fuck up something that's good, that's just malfunctioning right now, that will really function and play really well once we get it figured out and it's clicking. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to mess this team up, this whole entire core, or destroy it, or rebuild or whatever, because we feel like things are so bad right now. Because in some ways they're not. We do have a lot of good things going with this team, and we're just having a bit of a margin of error that doesn't allow us to win. And they're different things. I don't know. This team may be losing on purpose. I don't want to say that, but in some ways, sometimes I feel like that. Like last night seemed like a game where it's like, y'all aren't trying hard enough in the last 5 minutes. And something's weird about this. Why are they coming back, and why are they winning again by 2 right at the last game, part of the game? Something's not adding up here. Evelyn's here. Good to see Evelyn, and great to see you yesterday, Evelyn. Thank you so much. Evelyn brought me a nice package of candles and a sweatshirt. Let me show you all the sweatshirt that Evelyn brought me yesterday. Look at this hoodie. It's a Toronto Raptors World Champions 2019 sweatshirt. Evelyn, you're so sweet and kind and nice to think of me and other people. Tom, apparently you're getting something too. And Monique and a couple other people on the channel. She said she bought them because they were on a deal for a lot of them. And she's like, I want to get something for New Year's for my friends. And so she wanted to bring me this sweatshirt. Very nice of Evelyn. I appreciate you and love you, Granny Evelyn. It was so nice to just visit with you for just a second. I'm sorry I couldn't hang out longer. It's been really busy these days. Evelyn saying, "Good morning, Raptor Freak crew. I had 2 shots of whiskey last night, and today is another day. Let's go. Woo! All right, whatever you got to do to cope." Yeah, I just kind of just forget about the game afterwards, and kind of actually I went to sleep pretty shortly after the game. I was not feeling good after the game. I just felt like being tired. I was tired. I wanted to go to sleep. Name was saying English translation. Good morning, everyone. We're the real fans here this morning. Where's the other line, Nameless? Where's the Italian part? I didn't see it. Oh, maybe it skipped. Okay, I didn't see it. All right, hang on. It did skip. All right. Oh yeah, it really did skip a lot. Sorry, I didn't read all y'all's comments. I will read them now. Okay, Cool Boy is here. Cool Boy's saying, honest opinion, you have to pick one. We're only 1.5 games back from the first play-in seed and 3.5 games back from the 6th seed. With 36 games left, gut feeling, do we play for the playoffs or tank? Well, I'm going to say this every time, Cool Boy, and I have to in some ways. And this is what Bobby Masai should say. We play for the playoffs. We do not play to lose. We got to play to win. And I don't care if it seems like, oh, that's the way to go. Once again, there's no guarantees with these high draft picks. People have said some of these guys could be like Sam Bowie. And I agree with them. I always like to just go with what we've got already and just try and figure it out and add things as we go and develop them and get better and better. So yeah, no, we're especially when 1.5 from the first play-in seed. That's not that far, and that's very doable with so many games left. So yeah, no, with 36 games left, yeah, of course we still go for it. There's so much time left to just try and make the playoffs, and I'm going to stay with this side. I'm very anti-tanking. If we naturally just tank because we just naturally lose, like we've been losing recently, so be it. But I'm always striving to win and make the playoffs. So that's my honest opinion. G saying, yes, Tom, they look sick or defeated or sad. Something was off. Yeah, I think they were just tired, y'all. I think that honestly, they were interviewing them right after a practice, and they were probably just ran their ass up all over the place. And they're probably just an accumulation of being tired at this point of the season anyway. You know, they've had a lot of travel and a lot of games like every other day recently, and they got to keep traveling. And it's weary. They're wary is what it is. So I don't know. I don't want to read into this too much because once again, this narrative does not help us to think that, oh, they're tired or defeated or sad. You know, I think they were just naturally exhausted from practice. Nako's saying that game was fantastic till the last 6 minutes. Weiskamp is only allowed one bad shooting game. Scottie, Weiskamp, and Fred were our best players. See, he's picking the same guys as me, Nako is. Yeah, that game was very fun and very entertaining. We were on cruise control. We had that double-digit extra layer of maple syrup for a long period of time, and it was just really late in the game. They made that comeback. And a lot of it was really built on the three-point shooting, the capable three-point shooting. And that is really what we need more of. Like, why couldn't we play Joe Weiskamp in the last 5 minutes of the game? There's no rules against that, Nick. In fact, let me call you real quick. Let me call you on this real quick. Hello, Nick. Hi, it's the Raptors Freak. I know. I'm sorry. I don't mean to bug you, but listen, I just have one real quick question for you. At the end of the game last night, when you guys couldn't score for the last 8 minutes of the game, why couldn't you get the ball to Gary Trent or maybe Joe? Joe was playing so well in the first half, and he made all of his threes. Maybe you could have played him right at the end of the game too, and he might have hit a huge three to help us. And this game was way too close to not be getting some production for the 8 minutes. Only 4 points over the last 8 minutes of the game. How did you guys manage that? Y'all are not that bad of a team. All right, listen, I'm not trying to make you mad. Seriously. All right. Sorry. I apologize for calling. Seriously. Okay. All right. Yeah. Have a good one. Good luck against Boston. Bye. He did not like me calling him today. No, he didn't. Ooh. Okay. Ronadan saying this is not a playoff team. The time for a change. No need to try and salvage the season. Now, see, I don't know if it's like they're a real playoff team, but I don't know. See, I'm hedging my bets. I'm just going with both ways. I mean, maybe we are those people that have one foot in the subway car and one foot on the subway platform right now. But I mean, I just got to go with what's going on here. Once again, we're spectators. We don't control this. We just got to watch and ride the waves with them. And I support them in winning and not tanking, and I want them to make the playoffs. And it may seem like that is what is the point? Because they're already suck. But I just got to do that because it's the right way to be about this situation. It's the way Monique is about this situation. I know that a lot of other people will have a hard time being like this because it's, whatever. But this is just how I got to be. We got to win and we got to keep trying to win. I don't give a shit if we're losing still. We just got to keep trying to win. And it's just how it's got to be. Basketball Rewind saying, I've been fairly consistent, which is why I'm still appreciating every game. Golden State has Steph Curry. Golden State should trade Draymond because their chemistry is over after that punch. Chemistry change needed. Yeah, okay. This is all fair. And this is all pretty. I don't disagree with what you're saying here, but we are comparable to them. And in some ways, we're in the same position as them. You may say, oh, they have Steph Curry. Yeah, but we do have some good players, some very good players that maybe not right at his level, but they're not that far behind him. And, it's tough. I think it's a good comparison still. And that in some ways, if they're not going to like blow their whole entire team up and start all over, why should we? Is what I'm saying. Why should we? G saying Golden State didn't make the playoffs 2 years in a row and beefed up with the draft. Golden State is developing their youth at the same time. I think what they're doing is smart, short term and long term. Last few minutes, if every game they look scared to shoot, they play hot potato or play timid. I think it's mental at this point. I think that may be right. Like, why are you guys so hesitant to shoot? And it's not just happening at the end of the games. There's times during the game where nobody wants to shoot. There was one point where Scottie had a very easy shot he should have took, but he wanted to make the extra pass, and it turned into a turnover after that. Scott, you got to realize when you have that shot and them dead to rights. This is something in the NBA that really good offensive players realize, like Lou Williams, is that when they give you space or they fuck up, you have to capitalize on it and be cutthroat and absolutely take whatever they give you. And there's a lot of stuff that other teams are giving us with their defense that we're not executing on or recognizing that we could go and just take right at that moment. And that's partly being more aggressive and looking for it and going and taking it when it happens. And in some ways, we are not doing that. And it's the opposite. It's very hesitant. It's hot potato. Like I don't want the ball at the end to try and take the shot at the end to try and win it. I don't want that pressure. I don't want the crap that I would get from it. That's not the right attitude. We need these guys to be stepping up and not afraid to shoot the shot and very much be these guys. We're going to make the shot because we're ballers and this is what we get paid to do. And we love doing this, filling up the net. And you would want to do it as much as possible and as quickly as possible and all the time as possible. And that's what I'm saying. Y'all need that mentality. Y'all can't be gun shy. Y'all can't be kind of like, no, not on me. You, Scottie. No, not on me. Pascal. None of this. Because there is a lot of this going on. G's right. And that is the opposite of confidence. That's sheepishness. That's a hesitancy. And that's no good. We can't have that, Raptors. Y'all need to be cutthroat, aggressive, and hungry to go and get points for yourself. That's part of the problem. I feel like y'all aren't hungry enough. Siakam, you're not hungry enough for points. You need to be hungry for points, like a monster for points. Like Cookie Monster is a cookie monster for cookies. You need to be a points monster for points, just like Cookie Monster is for cookies. You want to gobble them up and go get as many and much as possible and just be a glutton. And I don't feel like you're doing that enough. 13 points. You've had lower scoring average recently. And I just want you to fill it up more and be aggressive and greedy and be the Cookie Monster. Please be the Cookie Monster. Let's see. Yeah, I think that G's got a lot of good points here. I just saying Golden State is not that far off from us in some ways. Maybe, it's more makes sense, the whole thing that they're saying. And maybe we're a little bit like unsure. Maybe we aren't. We should blow it up. But I think that they're close to us and that what they talk about with Golden State right now and their struggles shouldn't be that far off from what we're saying about our team. Some people may say, you're crazy. They were in the finals last year. Well, I mean, listen, there's some sort of scale of things. And in some ways, their situation is very similar to ours right now. So in some ways, I take direction. Well, what is Golden State going to do in this situation? If they're 50-50, they're a 500 team. They're not in a good place in the playoffs. What do they do with their season right now? In some ways, they are a leader and they could direct us. because I still think we need to just do the Masai Ujiri thing and just try to win as much as possible. Tom Duke saying 100% we lost that fourth quarter by 10 points. I actually have my white flag in hand. Tom's ready to surrender. Yeah, we did lose that game very much right at the very end. We were leading all the way, and they won by 2 points off of 2 free throws off of a really stupid ass foul call, which is really dumb way to determine the game with a whoop, and then boom, he's on the free throw line. And he's shooting 2 free throws. Really smart by D'Angelo. Really smart by Chris Finch. And that's how he outcoached Nick Nurse last night. That shot by OG was a good shot. And I love that they were going for the win and not going for the tie in a lot of ways. But OG, and they did give him, they shot it early enough to go for the tie off the rebound. But Scottie didn't put that ball back. He didn't get it in time. He was too far underneath the basket and couldn't put it in before the clock ran out. And OG, honestly, he got like 2 almost shot attempts. This is the fake, and then he stepped over the side and he shot it. If he had just shot it the first time, maybe then Scottie could have gotten the rebound and put it in time before the clock ran out. But it's really like that's something they have to think about. Is like we want to allow ourselves 2 shots. It's an insurance shot. Take the 3 to win, but if you miss that 3 to win, well, we need to put the basket in underneath on an offensive rebound to tie it to make overtime anyway. And we failed at both attempts. And that's no good. That is no good. We needed to make at least one of them. And we didn't either one of them. That sucks so bad. Click saying our defense is bad. Our offense at the end of the game is even worse. Yeah. Yeah, these are problems. But is there a reason why? Masai and Bobby, are you guys stealth tanking? Fiercely saying, good morning, fam. Tough loss yesterday. Embarrassing as we led by 18 at some point. Beginning to think we have a third quarter curse. Oh, I don't like that word. Don't read that word in here. Positives were Weiskamp and Scottie's performances. Yes, those guys were both awesome to see. They call him Exotic Joe, apparently. That's what Fred was saying. Exotic Joe. I mean, I don't know if it's the third quarter or anything that's like really like, I know that that's been a thing in the history of the Raptors, but I don't think it's third quarter like specific with anything that's going on with us. It's actually, it seems like it's more fourth quarter and first quarter are different problems. But the problems we have, they can happen at any time of the game. Second quarter, third quarter, it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't say that there's anything special about the third quarter. The third quarter problems were different from before and really had more to do with like the crowd not being in their seats in our own area, or us just coming back flat from halftime and just like giving up leads all of a sudden. This isn't what happened last night. And in a lot of ways, I don't blame the third quarter. I really do blame the fourth, where they outscored us 27-17. They did outscore us in the third, but it was only by 2 points. And we still had a good lead at the end of the third. So, yeah, it was an embarrassing game in a lot of ways. Like, honestly, there's a lot of people probably score tracking us and saying, oh, the Raptors are on their way to win, and they're going to win this game against Minnesota. And then, boom, they see the score at the end of the day or this morning. They're like, whoa, the Raptors ended up losing by 2. They were winning that whole game. What the hell happened with them? You know, I don't like that kind of stuff. Starscream is here. All right, we got Brooklyn Nets fan here today. I'm not even sure why Starscream is here. All right, let's see. Oh, Lex, I told you how awful J.Vaughn is as a coach, and you called me out on how that KD is out. Now you see how horrible my team is. Looks right. Okay, I'm not paying real close attention to Brooklyn, but I did know that Kevin was out. I felt like J.Vaughn has been a great coach for you guys. There's been a big difference. You guys had that winning streak. A lot of what's happened recently could not happen, probably with Steve Nash still here. But you think it's like just any coach. I mean, listen, you got to like your coach to a degree because it's who you got. Now, I know you don't like what happened with y'all last night. It looks like you guys lost to Phoenix. Okay, you were in Phoenix. You guys are on the road. You're playing on the road in the West. That's hard to win. And if you're really getting upset about that, you shouldn't. You are missing Kevin Durant. I wouldn't blame J.Vaughn for this. Seriously, I wouldn't blame J.Vaughn for this. Phoenix has been struggling, and they're hungry to win, and they're kind of dangerous right now. So, yeah, I don't know. If you're out on J.Vaughn, that's fine. You know, maybe you'll get a better coach this offseason because he is probably just interim. But, man, I don't know. I still think he's a good coach. And I don't think you should pin what happened with the Nets and the Suns last night on him. I think that y'all are just going to struggle a bit without your best player, and that's just natural. G saying, good point, actually. Noticed other coaches keep their starters out a lot earlier and go all in on the fourth. Noticed that with the Pacers 2 times and probably happened this game too. Yeah. They gotta just like accumulate rest over the game. Like the minutes total should like not add up over 40 by the end of the game. And that's really giving like Fred a good solid 5 minutes off in the game twice. Once in the first half and once in the second half, at least 5 minutes off. And bring them in a little bit later. And I don't like how he's just always playing the same 5 guys at the end of the game. Like it may switch, like, okay, Gary's not shooting well, so Precious gets to play at the end of the game with the starters. But I think that they should be a little bit more liberal in opening up. Like, okay, OG, you're one of our best defenders, but you're not playing well today. We're going to bench you for the crunch time, and we're going to play somebody like Joe W. And let Joe get out there and try something in clutch, because I think he could have helped us with our offensive problems at the end of the game. And that it should be merit based. Who's playing in crunch time for the Raptors instead of just going through this like normal rotation and idea? Okay, well, I just play my starting 5 at the end of the game because they're my best talented players. No, you got to think about on some nights, some of these guys that are role players, bench guys that don't play a lot, they may be having a really good game and they may be really hot, and you may need to just keep playing them and keep a cold player that's in the starting lineup that's not playing that well that night. You had the guts to bench Fred and Gary at the end of the game the other night for Precious and Chris. You do this kind of stuff still. Like, don't be afraid to bench OG for the last minutes of the game for somebody like Joe Weiskamp when he is hitting threes and could have helped us score in a really hard time when we aren't scoring. So, Monique is saying, good morning, everyone. Waiting to see OG's shooting slump go away. Go Raptors always. Yes, you go, superfan Monique. Love you so much. Nameless is saying, buongiorno tutti. Siamo a very fanatic. Chi stamattina. Buongiorno tutti. Siamo very fanatici. Chi stamattina. I think I said that right. I don't know. Isaac Campbell saying Raptors are giving up too many points lately, and it's even more apparent down the stretch. Gary and Fred are having a hard time defending opposing guards. We need versatility at center to set pace late. Yeah. I can't disagree with any of this stuff. We are having trouble controlling guards. We're having trouble controlling centers. Yeah, there may be problems with our roster construction with 6'9" vision. A lot of the big talk right now is 6'9" vision does not lend to having good shooters. And that in some ways, having good shooters in this league is just an absolute prerequisite to being a good team. I mean, that would just make sense. It's basketball. You need to have good shooters. Well, it may be even more, very, very integral and like absolutely a must. Cool Cat saying, good morning, Raptor Free Crew. When I heard Pascal's interview with Savannah Hamilton, I knew we would lose this game. Pascal, OG are burnt out. No energy for fourth quarter. Trade talks not helping players. It's a perfect storm of a lot of adversity and trouble. These guys just got to keep striving and no excuses. You know what? I know it's hard on your soul. I know it's tough, but Pascal, you're doing it for him. Remember this. We had a recent clip out about your dad talking to Taylor Rooks. Think about that and why you're doing this and the whole reason why, and you will get back to where you're supposed to be. It could very well be that these guys are very tired. So, Nick, if you can tell your players are overworked or burnt out, maybe you lessen their minutes to let them get some of their energy back and just kind of feel a little bit more, not so overworked. And that's what maybe you need to do is cut their minutes for a little while, use them in less time in the games, and maybe they'll get more inertia and energy overall by not playing so much right now. Oh my gosh, it's all wearing on them, whether it's physically or mentally right now. It's all wearing on them. Van Hoot saying, gee, nailed it. Golden State Warriors literally got lucky by tanking for 2 years with injuries and made smart asset management moves, allowed them to extend their window. Pascal being run ragged for no reason, it's done. Yeah, kind of what I was just talking about. Yeah, there's no reason to run him so ragged. So let's limit his minutes in some ways, Nick. Either way, if you're trying to win or not trying to win, you need to limit his minutes. They've been very good with what they did, but they didn't nail everything exactly right. But they did get a lot of good young players in that bad period, Golden State Warriors. Well, in some ways, we could say the same thing. We got Scottie Barnes and Koloko. So there is still a lot of mirroring of them. It may be that we're the wish version of Golden State in some ways, but we are still more like Golden State than most teams in this league. So I mean, if we're going to compare some teams, or it's kind of we're trying to figure out answers to our questions. Well, we can look at other examples around the league and see what's going on with them, and maybe find ideas for what we need to do. It is a copycat league. Summer Lowe's here. Fred should have known better. Been in the league for a while already. You mean about the swing through? Yeah, but that call is it's really a trap call. Anybody can get that call called on them at any time. In fact, it's kind of like, a get out of jail free kind of card. Even though I said this isn't Monopoly the other day. That is kind of a way to just be a cheap way to get a quick trip to the foul line. And in some ways, players, it's not that I don't think Fred was doing anything really that wrong. It's like they've taken so much away from defenders being able to guard people that he could do the one little thing that he could do is just put his hand on his shoulder like that. And he's just going to rip it up like that. And then boom, he puts him on the line. Sure. In some ways, you could critique Fred being not being smart enough about it, but I don't think it's like that. I think that is just a natural thing. And that's just something that I think anybody would get caught with this. It doesn't matter who it is. LeBron, anybody would get caught for that swing through in that situation in that way. And that's part of the reason why they did it, is because it's so smart. It's like, well, we'll obviously get to the free throw line because that's just automatic free throws if you can get that done. And I don't think that it's as easy as saying Fred should have known that he would do that and that that would happen. Well, now he probably will going forward in that kind of situation. You probably won't see that ever happen again with Fred in some ways. But then again, does that hurt his defense because he can't kind of hold them a little bit on his shoulder for a second there? See, that's the thing. They're making it so hard for players to be good defenders and have a good team defense. The NBA wants offense, and they're really, really hurting the defensive game. Last year may have been the last good defensive year the Raptors can have, is because it's just changing too quickly, and the teams are really taking advantage of it. Forgetful saying, bonjour. Good to see how well Fred and Scottie are playing together. I had a bad feeling when I saw that film of Pascal trudging up the stairs to the gym a couple weeks back. Seems a bit off mentally. I think they're just exhausted. Once again, I don't want to read into this too much. We could label these guys, everybody's just like making outside observations, but that's not good. These aren't positive observations, and they're not going to serve us. So it could be Pascal got a really good night's sleep last night. He's absolutely energetic. He wakes up this morning. He's like, I'm ready to play the Celtics. Bring on the Celtics. I want to beat their ass tomorrow. And he's like running around OVO all over the place. And he's smiling. He's feeling real good. But we won't see that on camera. Maybe we will. Maybe we won't. But that's what I'm saying, y'all. Let's not put this energy out there in our minds, a mental picture of Pascal and Chris and these guys all dejected and all sad and pathetic and stuff. No, that's not the reality we want to paint in our heads, even if it's delusional. I want to just say, picture them happy, smiling, energetic, happy, and running around. And who knows, maybe that will be more of the energy that's around them in the world today. Because I don't want to believe that they're just sad and feeling real pathetic about life, because that's not going to help us get out of the mud. They need to just be like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to pull myself up and get through this no matter what. Because I know it looked real bad. These guys look so low energy. But once again, we don't know. They may have just came from like a 45-minute workout where they ran every which way, and they're a little bit tired, and they just caught them right at the end of the workout. So there could be all kinds of different reasons why. Tom Duke saying OG perhaps 100% shouldn't have been set up for the last shot. Great play call, but why pick our coldest guy? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me. Maybe it's because he wanted to really fool Finch. He's like, he won't think we're using OG because OG is shooting 5 for 11 or something like that. He was 5 for 9 at that time, but that's a little bit better percentage. But he did miss those 2 threes by the end of the game to make him 5 of 11. 3 of 7 from 3, 2 of 2 at the free throw line, 8 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block, 3 turnovers, 15 points for Anunoby. And once again, look, Nick, if you're going to only play a certain amount of players and not that much of the bench, your starters all have to score a lot. And Pascal and OG scoring 13 and 15 points isn't going to cut it, because you're not going to get anywhere in the scoring race against an offensive team to score enough points. You won't make enough points. You can't expect a 40-point game from one Raptor, a 20-point game from another Raptor. That's 60 points, and then a 15 and a 15 and a 15 from the other three starters. That's another 45 points. That's only 105 points. And then you let 10 points from the bench. That's 115 points. The other teams are scoring 130. So you got to figure it out. Charles Barkley says teams can't win if they don't have enough point manufacturing. And we don't have enough point manufacturing right now with the way you're playing our team and the rotations and the minutes distribution. You need to open it up and play more guys to allow for more people to score more, so that we can get higher point totals to deal with the current trend changing in the NBA, that these are all point games that are on steroids at this point. Everybody is scoring just a hell of a lot of points. And we're getting left behind in this way because we're still kind of trying to be a defensive-minded team to keep the score down. Well, it's just impossible in a lot of ways. Maybe we could be perfect and have a game where we hold a team to around 70 points or 80 points like we used to. That's not very likely. You think that we can hold a team to 80 points in today's NBA, let alone 90 points? No. Everybody's scoring over 100 at this point. It has to be some sort of crazy futile shooting performance to be under 100 points at this point. Yeah, it's really bad. Really, really bad. Really bad. Callie's saying, why no Boucher? But Precious looked determined and full of energy. I don't understand why he leaves in starters so long when they're not performing. Yeah, Precious looked great. Precious was fantastic. He did. All right, I want to talk about one thing that really was a factor in why we lost last night, and I don't like it. I think it's unfair, and I think it's kind of messed up. That wolf call that they do before we shoot free throws is not fair. That's a different, weird kind of sound, and they can play it. It's not music, so they can play it in a rhythm or just jarringly at a weird time. And in particular, it was affecting Precious's free throw shooting. He missed all 4 free throws that he took last night. And part of it was because in the in-game ops for Minnesota, they use this, oh, and they have it go like a couple times. And listen, that noise is partly instilled in the psyche of the human mind from years and years of coexisting in wild with wolves that could actually kill you and come and eat you at any time. So there's a very innate animalistic instinct in our head to, when we hear that noise, to be a little afraid and have fear. And that's totally not fair in some ways. There's psyops in what they're doing with those wolf calls before the free throws. And that it is something psychological in a very deep primal place from the ancestry and history of humans on this planet throughout the whole entire ages that have to do with that noise. That it's not fair that they're doing that. And I could tell at one point Pat Frayer was kind of looking up when you could hear the howling. And I bet the NBA needs to look at this and maybe talk to Timberwolves franchise about doing that in-game op sound before free throws. That is gaming the system is not very fair, honestly. I mean, I'm the kind of guy who's like, sure, the Raptor can distract Devin Booker, but this is different. This is kind of like, changing the music and like messing around with your sound in your building just to make it haphazard or have rhythm weird in the building. And that's unfair. There's probably rules in the rule book about in-game ops being able to do that kind of stuff. But on the down low, this was a factor in the game. Precious missed 4 free throws. We lost by 2 points. And all 4 of those free throws that Precious missed were not characteristic, because he has been making his free throws like crazy lately. In fact, he was 4 for 4 in the game before. And now he's 0 for 4 last night. Yeah, that wolf call isn't fair. And I think the Minnesota Timberwolves may need to change their in-game ops. I love the Prince at the very beginning of the game with the When Doves Cry intro. When they're about to do the jump ball, that totally makes sense. It's Prince, it's Minnesota. And boy, did you see Nick Nurse's face light up when he heard that Prince starting at the beginning of the game. He's all serious and stuff. Maybe that was part of their psyops too. It's like, oh, let's make the coach of the other team really, really happy by playing Prince right before they do the jump ball. Because he had a huge, wide smile on his face at that point. They showed him for a second. Oh, Prince. They're playing Prince right before the game. Awesome. Well, it's Minnesota, of course. But yeah, the in-game ops for Minnesota was actually very impressive between that, the wolf call, which should be illegal. And then at the end of the game, with all the crazy bullshit that was happening with that zero point 0.4 seconds and trying to figure out what happened with the out of bounds play with Scottie Barnes there, they started playing the theme to Curb Your Enthusiasm. Dun dun dun. And that's true. That was very apropos for the whole situation and all the BS that was happening, and that we bungled the end of the game and they won. Very much like a Larry David episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, being a loser by the end of the game. Yeah, that sucked. And kudos to y'all in game ops for Minnesota. You guys were on your game that night, last night. But that wolf call, I think that should be illegal, seriously, because that really does you got to understand, cavemen and our ancestors, how much that sound terrified us. And it's like, look, you can domesticate the dog from the wolf, but there's still a lot of animal instinct that's from way back then. And that's what I'm saying. There's some psyops that was going on there. It's not good. It's not good. Now, as far as Boucher, Callie, I totally agree. Why the fuck didn't Chris play? In fact, I was thinking to myself, he didn't play in the first half. He's probably going to play in the second half. And this is the kind of game that would be really good to play him because Minnesota has some long players. That McDaniels guy, him and Edwards really kind of were a duo of trying to mess us up in the first half. One was green shoes and one was yellow shoes, and they were both running around making points in pretty easy ways. Like McDaniels really scared me because I see a very complete player, and I didn't realize how good he is. And I already Minnesota's got a lot of good players already, but that McDaniels guy, he really showed something with the 3-point shooting and just how long he is and how he was able to score down low too. He's the kind of guy that needs Chris Boucher playing against him. He's the kind of guy that needs an energy guy running around with him like Chris Boucher. In fact, that team being long and young, Minnesota, that's a great matchup to play Chris. So, Nick, why are you not playing Chris last night? Why are you only playing 8 guys? Like, why do you do this? You know, what is this thing about playing just 8 players? We played 9, but really Stat only played 7 minutes. What is with that? Why are you shortening your bench? You need to use it more. And I'm just sick of it. I don't understand why he didn't play Boucher, and I'm sick of him leaving in the starters so long also. G saying, rewind. Yes, I believe at this point, don't run our starters down. If they unintentionally tank, beef up their roster with their draft picks. If trades happen, they happen, but develop the youth too. Precious should have closed out, in my opinion. It's harder to defend when they don't have a center. Yeah, I like when Precious is out there, and in some ways he may not start, but I like when he's in the end of the game because he's like just such a good defender, and he's just has such a nose for the ball. And in some ways, one of the most important things you need to do in the last couple of minutes, the fourth quarter, is get defensive rebounds and get rebounds in general. And I really do feel like Precious in some ways is our best rebounder on this team at this point. And that it just makes sense to have him out there for all kinds of different reasons. I don't know, Nick. I really don't trust your judgment with what your decision making is with the starters' minutes too much, and then who you're playing at the end of games. I don't necessarily agree with just riding with your starting 5 all the time. And that Precious, yeah, I agree with G. I think Precious would have been really good at the end of the game last night. And I agree with everything he's saying here also. Don't run our starters down this season. There's no point in doing this. We're not adding up to winning anyway. So why do you need to play these guys 40 minutes almost? All of them. Just even it out. Let's go on an exploration pattern of going forward and saying, let's explore who we have and what will be good for the future and kind of what we want to keep around, and stop like overrunning guys we already know and we know we want to keep around, or maybe we are going to get rid of soon, but stop fucking running them all to the ground. I completely agree with that. Fun guy saying we are just simply bad. Yesterday really hurt, man. I just sat there in shock. I think I read that already. I skipped ahead and I think I read that already. Yeah, that's tough, Fun guy. I don't like hearing that you're in a bad place. Yeah, okay. This is where I caught up to. I just caught up to where I read from earlier. All right, I see what's up. Nameless is saying, okay, that was good morning, everybody. We're the real fans here this morning. That's right. That's what I said in Italian. Perfect. Monique saying, Weiskamp making the most of his second 10-day contract. Yeah, really, really good. Like, I love him making those shots. And I'm sure those guys on the bench are like, oh, crap, he's making his shots. And it really is saying something that he's that confident. He comes out and he makes tough shots. And it's like he's not letting the pressure get to him. Keep going, Joe. And I think he will be playing tomorrow against Celtics. I hope so. Cool Cat saying Nick Nurse is a great coach for high IQ advanced players. Chip ready. Our team is very young and things need to be simplified and need to learn how to shoot. Yeah. I think we just need better offensive players in some ways. In some ways, it's I don't know. We got to figure this out. G saying money talks, offense sells. They need to adapt. Yeah, the way the league's going is we can't play like the old Detroit bad boys anymore. We can't play like very defensive minded, heavy side. We need the offense more. We need to get in scoring races. We need to outshoot people because this is the way the NBA is turning. Kareem saying, time to add to this equation. Fuck them picks and get Jakob. We have such a good mix of young and veteran talent on the roster. We don't have time to stack up picks and develop. Our window is 3 to 4 years. Interesting. I'm not totally against this idea. I like to win now and try and get it going now. I'm not into getting a bunch of picks and being like Oklahoma City for 5 years. I'm all about doing taking the best of what we have now and adding to it and trying to win with what we got. And I don't know if that window is exactly right, Kareem. It may be a little bigger in my mind, but it may not be that much bigger than what you're saying. It could be like 5 or 6 years or 7 years. That's more what I see it. Basketball Rewind saying Minnie's not full strength. Bucks missing Chris and the Freak. Celtics don't even have Brown. Can't just hang in the game. Mental and physical energy needed to succeed could lead to injuries and destroy them. I don't know. I mean, they're doing it anyway. It's like that kind of stuff is already happening in this kind of way, in kind of ways. There's obviously mental problems with some of the guys right now. And then, the physical stuff, it's all going to happen either way. You could play the whole season, just go through the motions, and that kind of stuff will still happen. So you can't really say that. And it kind of goes along with what Stan Van Gundy said recently about, we only have one trainer and one strength coach, and we practiced way more, and nobody was getting hurt. Part of it is that they let every little ticky-tack injury be added to the list, and people sit out for it. Back in the day, guys were so hurt, and they continue to play no matter what. And that is kind of like part of the toughness difference between today's NBA and the old players from like the 80s and the 90s. These guys were warriors, and they played like hurt all the time. Isaiah Thomas played with a broken ankle. Larry Bird played with broken hand. Then nobody in this league is playing with anything broken at any point now. And that's part of the reason why the injuries are more now is because we can find them and understand them more. And sometimes guys played with injuries before they didn't even know they had. Talk to Leo Routens and stuff like that. Some of these guys had injuries they didn't even know they had, and they fucked up their careers. So in some ways, it's a very different landscape as far as with injuries and detecting them. And this is part of the reason why Stan Van Gundy's comment recently is very interesting. Well, there may have been just as many injuries. It's just those guys were so tough, they played with them anyway. And that's probably part of the difference. I mean, listen, I'm going to stay positive on this. Listen, every team is good, even if they're missing players. Every team in this league is good to a degree, and it's hard to win in the NBA. This is what our guys have been saying, and it's true that these guys step up. Other teams are having next man up mentality against us. We just having a really bad time in all kinds of different ways. Nako's saying Pat Beverly was better for the Wolves. Yeah, he was really good on the Wolves, and he was a great leader for them. I'm not impressed with the Timberwolves to a degree. They have some really good young talent, but they're not fundamentally good, and they made a lot of boneheaded mistakes. And, I mean, we shouldn't have lost to them. We really shouldn't have lost to them. It was really bad. Click saying it's not a dirty move. It's a vet move. D'Lo knew he was going to get fouled if he did that, and he knew he had no more fouls to give. I'm not saying it's a dirty move. It's a cheap move. It's just cheap. It's not dirty. You're right. It's just a cheap way to get free throws. It's very smart in some ways, and very like 100% usually gets them, and that's very smart. That's what I'm saying. Coach Finch outcoached Nurse in a way by doing that, and D'Angelo doing it. I mean, I don't know if it was his idea or Finch's idea to call the play that way, but it was brilliant. It was honestly brilliant, and I don't think it's dirty. It's just cheap. It's cheap. That's the difference. It's not dirty. It's a cheap way to do it. It's just an easy way. It's like a cheat code. It's basically like what it is to me. It's a cheat code. Ken A saying Nick benched the 2 hot hands from the bench and played Fred. I know. I noticed that too, and that pissed me off. It's like Joe's a hot hand. These guys, I don't even know. Fred's not bad to play. It's not Fred. I would have benched OG last night. I seriously would have. I wouldn't have played him in the last couple minutes of the game. I wouldn't have played him in the game before either. His energy, and he's just off. And in some ways, you invite that off energy late into the game when you play him that late in the game. You've got to recognize and know your players better, Nick. You've got to read into them. And you can't just have favorites and say, oh, these are my guys. I play Fred and OG and Pascal no matter what. You really need to look at them and understand their biorhythm and where they're at with their energy and whether they're playing well or not, and have the guts to just not play them all of a sudden for the rest of the game. Because in some ways, you may give them a kick in the ass and be like, oh, shit, I usually play at the end of the game, but I'm not playing. And maybe they get better for the next game. There's all kinds of reasons why you shouldn't just carte blank give the minutes at the end of the game to certain guys. They should have to earn it as the game goes on. And in some ways, that's the carrot you put in front of the starters, just like you put in front of the bench guys to get into the rotation. Well, you want to get in the rotation? Well, you need to do this, and you get them hungry. Well, what happens when you have 5 starters that just get whatever they want no matter what? They get entitled. They get lazy. They don't work as hard. They don't play as well as they could. So give them the incentive of finishing the game and show very clearly in the next few games that this is how I reward people. And there's a reward system. And actually give it. Joe Weiskamp should have gotten rewarded for the way he played in the time he was out there with more time when the time really mattered. And who knows, maybe he would have paid off and we would have won the game last night. That's what I'm saying, Nick. Stop just giving everything to those guys just carte blank. They just get it. Oh, you just get it, Scottie, because you're just that. No, I've seen you bench Scottie at times to help him get more motivated and be more like, I need to earn this time, or get out there and I'm not playing good enough. I need to sit on the bench and think about it for a while. Well, do that with these other guys. And not only will they get more time and rest because they look burnt out, but maybe they'll find a motivation level that's we're not hitting with them to a degree at this point because everything's just given to them in some ways. You got to think about that. Are you just giving it too much to the starters too easily? Like, here, you just go, Fred. All right, let's keep going. Let's see. Fun guy saying, hey, Lex, I see you're starting to see how Nick Nurse's massive flaws. Young players in complicated system will always result in lots of mistakes. Franchise needs a simpler coach, some simpler, sometimes better. It depends on what stage your team's in as a franchise. Sure, I'll agree with that. And some of what you guys are saying is true. Some of it does seem like it's very complicated, but in some ways he's very simple also. And one of the things that what you're saying here is, all right, one of the things that the Raptors, I have to give them a lot of credit for and give them major props for, is that we take care of the ball really, really well. We are not a very turnover prone team. And in some ways that is a sign of a good team, y'all, that we don't like fundamentally turn the ball over in stupid ways all the time. We are usually getting our turnover numbers are under 10 or like right around. That's really, really good. In fact, in the history of the NBA, that kind of stuff with turnovers is really, really like points to a team being very good and very capable and smart and knowing what they're doing, very like exact. So in some ways, the argument here is that we are doing exactly what we want to do, except for not making shots. We're not turning the ball over, and that is a very good indicator of a very well-run team that is together and being smart and taking care of the ball. So there's some things that just don't kind of like jive with like saying that, oh, we're just this or this, because there are a lot of things that we are doing really well that indicate a very good team, a high quality team, like limiting our turnovers. So it's just weird, because I don't think they're making a lot of mistakes because it's complicated. In fact, I feel like they don't have enough real plays. In fact, in some ways, I would say, oh yeah, sure, it looked like a real play with OG taking that three and the way they designed it. Alvin was saying, oh, that's a great play they set up for him. He just didn't make it. But in some ways, that's not a great play because he didn't make it. That much like D'Angelo Russell doing the swing through and getting the free throw line, that was like a percentage of success that won and was successful. We didn't have a percentage of success in the play that we drew up and happened. That, yeah, sure, maybe you're like, okay, OG's a dead eye. He doesn't shoot the miss, and we can count on him in a lot of situations. And maybe there could have been some sort of crazy 3-point shot that made it at the end of the game, and we won by one all of a sudden last night. But I think we could have made a way better play still. A play that, it's not successful, then it wasn't the right play, is what I'll say. Because, in basketball, you want to have the highest percentage chance of making the shot. Well, this is 100%. And that is maybe 30 to 35%. And that's what I'm saying. You play the percentages. And in some ways, I wasn't playing the percentages setting up OG with that three, especially since, as some people have put it in here, he was cold for most of the game. So, I mean, once again, maybe this is true. Maybe Dwayne Casey is that coach that we need right now. And Nick Nurse is the advanced coach to take you to the next level in the playoffs to championship. That could be true. I don't know. I don't know. Nick is in a weird place. Once again, I'm not trying to get rid of Nick Nurse. I may be critical of him and say all this stuff that's pissing me off about what he's doing with the minutes and the rotation. But I still don't want to fire him, and I still think that he's the coach for the Raptors. And that's very important to say, as I can constructively criticize him and not want him to be fired or him to go anywhere. So Monique saying Kevin Garnett likes what he sees from Scottie Barnes. I saw that Kevin Garnett tweet, and there's part of it that I didn't like. Him recognizing Scottie's nice, but I don't like that he inferred that Toronto's going to make it harder for him to do well in his career. And he did say that in the tweet. He said like a harder road through Toronto. And that just, it's doubling down on this whole idea that we don't get any credit for things here. We get second slighted, and that he's not going to get a lot of the accolades, and he'll be in the shadows just because he's in Canada playing for us. I hate that. That is a weapon that other people in the NBA are going to use to pry him out of here and get him on another team. And part of what Kevin said in that tweet is alluding to that and that culture and that idea of that. And I don't like that, because in some ways, I don't think Scottie wants to go the hard route with us, and he would take the easier route somewhere else. I hate that about him, because in some ways, I'd like to see him be like Fred and Pascal and go through the fire and the hard stuff here. I hope he just stays. And I hope we got to get winning, though. And we got to show him that we have promise for the future for him to win at the highest level. Like, he don't want to waste his time here like Kevin did in Minnesota. And yeah, I didn't like that tweet to a degree, but I did like him recognizing him and saying this. But there's parts of that Garnett tweet that aren't good for a Raptor fan. Trust me. G saying, on a funny note, Gary Sr. would have socked Lopez. I love that interview with Gary Trent Sr. Before the game, I guess, or after the game or during the game. He's there with his two sons, Graydon and Grayson, and they're both wearing little fur coats, just like he's wearing his fur coat. And hopefully it's fake fur and nothing real. And then, he said, yeah, my son's better than me. I would have socked Brook Lopez for that crap that he did in that game recently. And that's what I'm saying. There's like Gary Trent Sr. was a very good bad example for his son in some ways also. That it's like, don't be like your dad and be like this way, the Shack of the Mac, and fighting people and having that kind of attitude. Have the attitude. And he said that his son talks a lot of trash on the court like he used to, but he doesn't fight like he used to also. And I love that Gary Trent Sr. Interview. And you go, Gary. It was awesome. Sue saying, good morning, everyone. Well, that was a tough one. We shouldn't have lost this. I'm trying to stay positive, but games like that are painful. Scottie was great, though. Well, there you go. Stay positive about Scottie. Stay positive about the future. And just stay positive in general, Sue. Listen, keep working on your channel. Play it again, Sue, with friends. Always reacting to music videos and stuff like that. Check out her YouTube channel. It's awesome. And maybe it is you just go and work on the channel more than you're dwelling on the Raptors too much these days. That's what you guys got to do. You got to take a break. We can't be 24/7 Raptors right now because it's hard to be. It really is hard to be. It's hard on your soul. Bradley's here. Good to see Canadian Cowboy. Good morning, Lex and Raptor Freaks. Have a great day. Thank you, Bradley, for popping in on a Friday. TGIF. Click saying, I'm tuned out. I'm not mad when we lose games anymore. Neither am I surprised. Let's get a good draft pick and prepare for October 2023. Messiah and Bobby have a lot of tinkering to do. Yeah, I like what Click's saying here. Listen, if you want to go numb, you want to wave the white flag, you want to tune out, any of this kind of stuff is fine. It is fine. Whatever you got to do to cope with being a Raptor fan in today's day and age with what's happening right now, you just do what you got to do. And yeah, I'm not surprised that we lost the game at the last second last night. Maybe, in recent years when we've been a really good team, we don't expect to lose like this at the last minute. This would have been way more devastating because it would have been like, oh my gosh, we absolutely gave up the game, and we would have been more critical and even crazier about this. But right now, it's just kind of par for the course. So it's not that shocking that we led the game the whole entire game. We're really winning and like completely dominating the game, and then we actually fucked up and lost the game by 2 points at the end of the game. In the past that would have been way, way worse in some ways, but now it's just kind of like, and it's not that we're used to it. It's just that this is this year, and every year can be different. We set the tone. That's why we understand. You got to understand. We've learned a really tough lesson this year that getting a good start and getting going and staying healthy is so important to getting good things going and continuing them snowballing into good things, because you can get bad things going and they snowball into bad things. And that's really what you got to focus on from the start of your season, and establishing your team's identity, the roles of your players, and getting going in positive like ways to win. And we've never gotten that chance this year in a lot of ways. We've always been behind in trying to do stuff after Pascal got hurt. Paul's saying, at what point do we say a team full of role players isn't a winning formula? I think we need that big trade or Scottie leading the way. Well, we'll see what they do, Paul. I don't know what point you say. I mean, everybody's been wondering that since December or even November. It's like, when do you throw up your hands and just say, "Oh, we're tanking, we're tanking"? People have been doing that. It's almost like a wave. We're like, "Whoa, tanking! Whoa, tanking! Oh no, not tanking! Oh, tanking! No, not tanking!" It's very much been like a on-off switch as far as like tanking mentality with our fans right now. And I don't know. You know what? I'm just gonna fucking say, let's just win. And let's just stay positive. I don't care how many times we lose. I just want to win. I'm in the Messiah side. I'm not trying to tank. If we lose and we end up with something good because of that, so be it. But otherwise, I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm not saying, oh, let's lose on purpose to try and get victor. I'm saying we still try to win. And if we just don't do well enough and we end up with a really good draft pick this year, so be it. So be it. That's just what it is. Callie's saying, I feel your pain, Sue. From now on, I'm going to watch games with no expectations, enjoy drinks, enjoy dunks and development of young guys. I was just say you might need drinks to get you through the games these days. Yeah, just enjoy it for the entertainment value. Just enjoy it for the fun. Those people in Minnesota got a real treat last night. The home crowd got a real fun time. A lot of the game, they were looking really morose and kind of sad and pathetic. And then they were kind of picked up and they were dancing for a little bit. I'm like, they're losing by 10 and they're having such a good time in Minnesota still. The people just dancing, the little kids having fun. And then boom, they were loyal. They stuck with the team. Hopefully not a lot of them left, and they got to see their team win after all. That's the best kind of, like, those are feel good wins. In fact, that's what the Timberwolves announcer is saying afterwards. This is one of the most satisfying wins that the Timberwolves have had all season last night. So once again, the Raptors are so benevolent and caring and giving that we're giving other teams good vibes to get going with things that they're having trouble and struggling. We get them out of the mud by helping them. Oh, we're so nice. We're so benevolent. Oh, so nice. Callie's saying, all right, I read that one. Country Kong is saying, Scottie looked amazing last night. He played like a true superstar. I'm totally fine with being patient because it looks like it's going to be extremely worthwhile. I know. See, this is exactly the kind of comment I want to hear this morning. What about Scottie makes you not realize how good we're going to be? Seriously. And the thing we're seeing about him recently is, listen, there's a little bit of difference between him and Pascal. Pascal is a superstar, sure. And he can score and he can be the leading scorer and can do all this stuff. But there's an edge to Scottie that Pascal does not have. And part of this edge is the kind of edge that's like, I'm the big dog on the court and I want to be the most dominant player in the whole entire game. I'm going to be the superstar. I'm going to be like a LeBron James or a Giannis Antetokounmpo, and I'm going to take this game over in a couple different ways. Whether it's going to be down in the low post, boom, I might hit this three all of a sudden and help us in a real moment, boom. I might do some incredible things on the defensive end or have a steal. Or just, he's this kind of guy that can do so many different things on the court that he just wants to win. And he's going to be this kind of guy that can make his will on winning more and more evident. That's part of what I'm talking about. I'm trying to describe it not so clearly. Scottie has a will to win, and it's still trying to negotiate with the natural order of NBA games and what it takes to win those games. But when he matures and figures out how his will to win can be used in a more concrete, specific way and in any kind of moment to win, the more he learns that, he's going to be a dominant superstar in this league. And CountryCon can see the signs like I can, and he's so here for it. He wants to watch and can't wait to see how worthwhile this is going to be. So let's be patient, like Masai said, and allow Scottie to have his career arc of development, because we're seeing stuff that just shows that there's a crazy future for him. Seriously. Think about how dominant he was down around the basket and how he's just dunking on them or putting shots back and how much he makes all those shots. Like he is really shooting a high percentage. And that's usually that high percentage, field goal percentage is usually for guys like Shaq or Jared Allen or really tall guys that are taking a lot of dunks. And well, he is in some ways, but in some ways also he's mixing it up with everything. And he's still shooting. Like I don't even know what Scott's shooting right now for the season. But he's got to be shooting like 50 to 60% from the field. He's just shooting too well at this point. Basketball Rewind saying, and for the record, I'm not suggesting we do a full-blown tank. I'm just saying the sticking with the status quo is not it. Doing the same thing and expecting a different result is insanity. All right, I know that sounds like insanity, but that's not totally true. I mean, look, think about this. If you're just an individual and you want to get better at playing the piano, you may play that piano and you may have a certain capability to play that piano well. But if you work on it so hard, there may be a period of time where you're not getting anywhere with getting better at it. But at some point, if you continue to work hard, I mean, it sounds like insanity. You may have a breakthrough still and have another level, a plateau that you can get to of excellence in your piano making. That's what I'm saying. It may seem like we're not getting anywhere and we just are doing the same thing over and over again. It's insanity to just keep trying doing it, but that's not totally true here, because you can't really say that we're just doing the same thing because it's changing night by night. Scottie's changing how good he is night by night at this point. He's coming up so quickly. And that's part of why it's so chaotic and weird, is because he's getting good very fast. And then in some ways, I can say doing the same thing and expecting a different result is not insanity, because we don't know how much he can get that much better and how much that will make us better. It could be that we're just bumping our heads on getting wins right now, but it could be that his next jump and his development and how much he's capable of taking over the game will put us right on over and winning more dominantly. Like we're losing just barely in really close games and shitty situations, sure, and they look bad. But I'm saying there's something that could just happen just a little bit better and more consistently, and then boom, it's more overwhelming and more overpowering than struggling like it is right now. So I know it sounds like that, and I know you're not saying full blown tank, and I really appreciate that. And I think that you're very astute and you understand like a tinkering move. I agree with too. Also, I think we're on the same page, Van Hoot, as far as like maybe just a small little personnel change that kind of kickstarts things, or it is very symbolic of the problems with offense. We get a better offensive player. I don't even think we need to get a center right now. I think it's really that we just need to get a more capable offensive hooper that will absolutely fill up the basket and get us points no matter what. And they have to be a good enough quality that Nick Nurse will have to play them in the rotation, and that they're not going to stagnate on the bench. And we just get somebody and then we don't even use them. They have to be that good. So it may be like, I don't know, you turn around and trade Gary Trent for somebody who's like a little bit different than him, but maybe right kind of consistent in a different way than him. I know that's scary because you're giving up so much with Gary in some ways, and to make up for that amount of what you get from him, you need that, but you also want it in an area that we're kind of missing and lacking in too. So this is a very, like, they have to really tread lightly and be smart about any personnel moves, because you don't want to give up more than what you're getting. And that's the scary thing with Gary Trent and moving him, because he's giving so much right now. So I'm with you. I think a little move and tinkering, a little bit of a tinkering is good, but not getting rid of the whole thing. And I do believe you can get better without changing too much. That it's really because a young player is developing and they just have jumps in their game that are huge. It's like, that's where you get it. Fun guy saying, let's be serious. Brook Lopez would have never done that to Gary if he was banging all night in the paint with Whiteside or Mitchell Robinson or Joel Embiid or Serge Ibaka. Point is, no center, no threat. No, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I mean, we could have had those guys. We could have had Serge on our side. He might have done that still. I mean, listen, I like how OG stood up for him, but no, it's not even that. That's not even why Brook did this. I think in some ways, all right, listen, Brook's been in the league for a long, long time. And he's on a playoff team. He's won a championship with this playoff team. And he's kind of like, in some ways, he's like Draymond. And part of what he's doing is a psychological, like stupid shit, is what he's doing out there. And it could very well be. He said to himself, either he's on roids and he has real roid rage and he has anger problems because of the roid rage, or he just decided, I'm going to be an angry guy on the court. I'm not worried about fouling out. I'm not worried about getting kicked out. I'm just my X factor, much like Rodman would come out to antagonize the other players and piss them off. It could be that Brook Lopez had very much an agenda to come out and be an angry player on the court and just cause mayhem by being an angry person. And that was an opportunity for him to kind of just like liven things up and get things spruced up and crazy and weird. Well, people were hoping that moment could be like the Bobby Portis moment with Pascal last year, where the Raptors wake up and just go crazy after that. Well, it didn't add up to a win afterwards still. It sucks. I hate it. But yeah, I don't think lacking the big guy is the problem here. I mean, there's enough guys on our team that could step up and fight people, and they would be very equal fight. OG, Precious, nobody wants to mess with those guys. They're very strong. Very strong. Ronadan saying, better idea. Instead of trying to make the Barnes fit with Siakam and Fred VanVleet, instead change the team around Barnes instead of building Siakam and Fred. Okay, I see you saying let them go and just start building the whole team around Scottie now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. Okay, yeah, there's a lot of comments. I'm gonna have to catch up on stuff here. Where did it jump from? Okay, hang on. Wow, you guys are really, really filled it up. And I'm going to make sure I get everything as far as stuff up here. Okay, here we are. Better idea. Instead of trying to make the Barnes fit with Siakam and Fred, I think that they fit naturally anyway. I think that there's no problem with fit with the three of those guys. We're seeing Freddie and Scottie have really good chemistry with each other. Pascal and Fred always have. And then even Pascal and Scottie have good chemistry. This isn't the issue. It's not about fit. The fits are fine. It's about roles being determined and kind of like growing into them and like allowing for them. It's like Fred and Pascal are allowing space for Scottie to grow into a new role. But in some ways, there's duties and responsibilities that are falling through the cracks while the space is open for Scottie to jump in and take it. Sure, he'll jump in and take it to a certain degree, but there's certain stuff that's still falling through the cracks that nobody's picking up. That because these guys are allowing the space for him to come in and take it. Does that make sense? It's kind of like that is part of the problem with the Raptors right now, is that they wanted Scottie to take more on. And in some ways during the season, he hasn't stepped up and taken it earlier in the season, but he's taking it more now. But there's still some smoothing over about this kind of that void space where he comes in and takes over. He's not consistently taking everything that he needs to take over in that space. And those guys have stopped doing some of the jobs that they did last year because they want Scottie to take that space. And that's part of the problem. Things are just falling through the cracks because nobody's doing it because but Fred's kind of turned back into being him from last year because he's being more of a point guard and assists and stuff. And that was part of catching all that stuff. And when we really got really bad last November, December, it was partly because we were dropping the ball on who was the point guard. Well, Fred's kind of now being the point guard again for sure, with Pascal being a point forward, and Scottie's not really doing the point guard stuff anymore. He's not doing it that way at this point. So, Cool Cat saying, Lex, I agree with you. We will go as far as Scottie's development pace. Year 2, we have been mixing up his roles to determine how best to use him. Journey to our chip continues. That's right. We're on a fact-finding year. We're on an observing year, a developing year, and it's being very successful. The record won't reflect that. But the growth and the ability of Scottie becoming more apparent and revealing itself, that is a huge success. And that is a big part of it. Cool Cat, I'm glad you see it. That like so much of what's tied to what we're doing is to what he's doing with his development. Monique is saying busy weekend ahead, going to both games. Wow, Monique's gonna be there for both the Celtics on Saturday and the Knicks on Sunday. We have a double double against two Atlantic Division opponents that we hate, and we need to win both of them. Let's just kick both their asses. That'll make everything feel real good. You beat the Celtics on Saturday, Raptors. Raptors Nation will be celebrating like it's a championship, honestly, because we haven't had much good to be celebrating. And yeah, Knicks, we owe you guys some more too. We want to beat you guys some more on Sunday also. Um, all right, let's see. That's awesome that you're going to games, Monique. Scorekeeping games last night. Bulls win after the Boston tonight. I think we have the easiest stretch. So do the Bulls. Bulls winning in Paris. DeMar DeRozan back in action, playing for the Bulls in Paris, beating the Detroit Pistons. That was a very successful game, apparently. The Paris crowd was very into it, and they're hungry for more NBA over in Europe. Yeah. So who knows what's going to happen with that, Adam Silver? How can we make the NBA have more of a part of being over there without sending so much traveling and everything? I know this is regular season, and this is awesome, and they love that. But yeah, this Bulls Pistons game yesterday in Paris, good stuff, and very successful for the global game. I like it. I like it. Callie saying, I really hope to see more of Joe. To hit 3 threes coming off the bench for the first time is impressive. Yeah, that's not very good for percentage. That'd be very, very tough to do. You're going to miss at least one of the three, but no, he made all three. And like I said, they weren't easy shots, and they were kind of a little off center. He was kind of a little, and he still managed to swish it. I really, really like him, and I want to see him out there. And on the defensive end, he looks very active. He looks like he's very engaged. He's very much trying and giving his best effort. You can tell. And that will keep him on the court also, is the other side. He's not looking like he's sticking out like a sore thumb for being a weakness on our defense. So those two things will get him to play tomorrow. Watch, he's going to play tomorrow. I'll bet you money he will play him against the Celtics. I hope he does. If he doesn't, I'm gonna be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, Nick? Play Joe Weiskamp, please, please. Click saying it's not a developing year. Developing year was last season. This season we were supposed to be a playoff contender and try to make the second round. We're not close. Well, expectations change according to things that happen. Last year very much was a developing year, yeah, but this year is also. A lot of it has to do with Scottie. Like I said, he's very much in development. Precious is very much in development. Christian's very much in development. We can have a few development years, and we had a successful development year last year of making the playoffs while in development, and that's not very easy in some ways. So this year it's a little bit tougher, but it's not much different than last year. It's just that we're not winning as much this year. So I don't know. Expectations change. Sure, at the beginning of the year, we wanted to get past the second round, get past the first round, get in the second round. We were talking pie in the sky. But reality of things like injuries and different things had to change and temper our expectations for the season. And that just happens to NBA teams. Bad luck and bad things happen to teams, and they have to change kind of what they expect for the year. And that's basically what's happening with us. And you're right. We're not close to being probably a very deep playoff team. But, that's part of it is it's like not always development isn't always just all the way up. There is a bit of we're going through right now, and hopefully it'll be corrected and we'll start going right back up again to get back to those levels. Paul B saying being last place in offense and defense is unacceptable. Changes have to be made. Yeah. Are those real stats? I know we're really bad at field goal percentage, but the defense, I don't know if we're the worst defensive team in the league. That doesn't seem right. Starscream looks like my comment was missed. It's okay. Which comment? I saw one comment by you so far on the stream. But I didn't see another comment, Starscream. I think it was about you guys losing and J.Vaughn not being a good coach. I did read it. Anyway, sorry, Starscream. If you want, you can write it again. I'll read it. If I missed anything you wanted to say, just write it in again. I'll read it. We're almost at 2 hours. I don't care. We'll keep talking. G saying it's still a developing year. Team is very young. No starter over 30. Contending teams are much more experienced with vets. Look at ages. Many starters are in their 30s. There may be a few exceptions for sure. We have one of the youngest teams age-wise still in the league. I mean, we're still near the bottom, then not at the top. So, this is all true. Edmonds here, Race Mode Media. Good to see you. Stealth Tank looks plausible. but I think I'll just give all the credit to Kyle Lowry for delivering the passion for winning in Toronto. Woo! So he's saying the ingredient that we're missing is the Kyle Lowry Bulldog. We don't lose and we want to win every single game kind of mentality. I'm worried about this. That dog is very much a factor that we need more in our players. Chris Boucher's talked about the dog in Kyle Lowry, and we need dog on this team once again. So where is the dog? Who has the dog? Freddie, do you have the dog? Can you step up and have that dog? Is it Scottie? Scottie, can you have dog? Can you go call Lowry and find out what dog is so you can have it? Because we want you to have dog. We need dog on this team. Yes, we do. G saying our centers are Precious and Koloko, very young and raw. Chip here had Serge and Gasol. Big difference in experience and IQ accumulated over time. For sure. For sure. This is a big part of it. We're a development team. If we have another year like this next year, will y'all be able to handle it? Oh my gosh. We might have to deal with this for a little bit before we get to really premium, awesome playoff team mentality and who we are. We may have to go through some tough times for a little bit, y'all. We need to realize we've been spoiled and also feel real grateful for how spoiled we had it. And hopefully we'll get back to that. But that's part of it is we need to learn without to really appreciate when we have with. So Nameless saying you nailed it when you said that the team's success is predicated at which the rate of Scottie Barnes develops. That's the answer right there. Bravo. Yeah. And that's why I have total faith we're going to kick ass and we're going to be badasses. You don't think Scottie's a slam dunk just as much as he slam dunks it on people? Yeah, he's a slam dunk. So the more and more he gets more control of his will and how he can influence the game, the more we're going to win. Watch, more we're going to win. Basketball Rewind saying, I'm not pro running guys into the ground to try and make a 6 seed to get destroyed. I have more respect for the players than to end up killing them physically. I like this too. I mean, seriously. Well, that's what I'm saying. We can still try and make the play and balance and temper things. You know, seriously, Nick, this year's not going to be a superb, like super playoff year where we're trying to go for a championship, obviously. Then don't overplay your starters. I think that the fans all really much believe this. And a lot of us are saying the same damn thing. That why are you running them into the ground? Are you shortening the careers of Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet because you are overplaying them so much? And we all wonder this. Like you could be shortening their careers because you're playing them way too much. So maybe start thinking about that. And like I said earlier, give more tryouts and possibilities to these guys on the bench to show that they can be good assets to carry forward in the roster for next year. Because in a lot of ways, we are playing for next year and we're not playing for anything this year. And that in some ways, you got to kind of change how you run the team for the rest of the year with that and not just run these guys ragged. Like Siakam looks like he's, about to fall over. He's so exhausted. So yeah, we got to figure this out. And I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Van Hoot. You and I, we have similar mindset on this. We really do. I can tell. We may just say it a little bit differently. And maybe that you're coming from a maybe a little bit, not that you're negative, but from the little bit more cynical side. And maybe I'm a little bit more on the optimistic side. But we're very similar in our position on all this, for sure. Let's see. Click saying, I don't know how you keep convincing yourself that we can turn it around and make it like the Eastern Conference Finals. Laugh out loud. Too many issues with this team, and time is ticking on the season. Well, the only reason why I say this is partly because I want to continue to have hope, but also because in reality, this is true. I mean, this happens in all sports. You can think about the NFL. There could be a team that is really bad for the first half of the season, and they may not get it all together right, but they just inch in and they have fire. They're just caught fire and they're a hot team going into the playoffs. And then when they come in the playoffs, they just kick so much ass. And they get way further than what you would have thought from most of the season. That's what I'm saying. This can happen in any sport. It can happen in baseball, hockey, NBA. You have a team like us that struggle for the first half of the season, and then maybe they're still struggling a little bit into the second season like we are right now, but they figure it out and they get enough inertia. They're playing really well because sometimes it doesn't matter what you're playing like in January or November. It matters what you're playing like in April. It matters what you're playing like at the end of March into April into the playoffs, and that inertia can be way more powerful than your overall record and things that matter with that. That's really kind of my point with this. And that it could be like we found something out last year in December and everything started clicking and we just went on a crazy winning clip. Well, that could still happen. That moment of something clicking and us being way, way better than we've been performing recently could very much still happen in any of these months leading into the end. Now it's near the end of the season. Obviously, there's not, it's gonna be really hard to get the inertia and the good like repetitions of it to the point where you can practice it and be effective in the playoffs. I think you're right, Click. It's not very likely that we're going to get far or do stuff in the playoffs, but the chance of it happening is not absolutely nil. There are opportunities and possibilities for teams to pick up inertia and steam at the end of the season and make some noise just because they have so much good going all of a sudden. Yeah. So I mean, I agree with you. It's probably not likely. And I don't want to be pessimistic about it. I want to allow for the best possible opportunity outcome for the Raptors going forward. And that is what I just described. That would probably be the best possible outcome for them is to kick some ass and maybe make some noise and just be on a hot streak at the end of the year. Sue's saying good plan to Cali. Yeah, y'all are being smart. Just take a little bit more detached. And as I said, if you need drinks while you're watching the game, Cool Cat saying players were expected to make a jump in development, which didn't happen. I expect front office will make some changes, shooting problems and fundamentals. I hope we make the play in for Scottie and Precious. Yeah, I really want to make it for those youngsters. And the jump in development has happened in some ways. Now, Precious, he's been hurt. We haven't really seen the jump with him. He's kind of where he was at the second half of last year, but he's playing just as well in a lot of ways as then. So he hasn't really taken a downturn. So we can't say that. Scotty's definitely on his way up. And everybody who said that he was having a sophomore slump was wrong. It's just that we were seeing the very early, like, tough part of the development part, but he is so good. And he had his best game of his NBA career last night. And I have a feeling we're going to be repeatedly saying this in the weeks to come as the season goes closer and closer to the end. We'll have more opportunities to say, wow, Scottie just had his best game as a pro in the NBA. We'll be saying that over and over again. Watch. It's going to be happening a lot more often. You'll realize it. Monique's 3 stars of the game are Scottie, Fred, and Joe Weiskamp also. Yeah, we're all picking the same people. We just expect more from Gary, OG, and Pascal. I'm sorry, guys. We just expect a little bit more from you guys, especially when Nick's going to really play you guys so much and really give you a privilege of playing a lot. You guys need to step up and score more is what I'll say. It's like people are looking at the minutes numbers for Siakam. You played 41 minutes and you only scored 13 points. Meanwhile, we got Joe Weiskamp. He plays 12 minutes. He's got 9 points. So Thad Young, 7 minutes, 4 points. These guys are getting way more points per minute. And in some ways, we need to look at that. Y'all need to be scoring points if you're on the court eating up minutes. We can't have like that kind of people talk about assist to turnover ratio. Let's look at points per minute ratio and who is scoring enough points because we need production. We need point production, Nick. Find out who your point producers are, the ones that are high level, and play them and see if you get better scoring and offense from it. That'd be smart. That'd be real smart. Sue's saying, I agree. We could have tried to play Joe more because we needed to score. We didn't lose because they scored threes. We lost because we couldn't score in the fourth. Nick should have given Joe a shot. Yeah. We should have played better shooters at the end of the game. Maybe that's not the time to play your really athletic, versatile players like OG and Precious. Maybe it is. But maybe you need more shooters and more of I don't know. I wish he had played Joe late. Max is here. Max Minahan. I think Gary should have taken the last shot. I agree with this, especially since it's Minnesota. He had his birthday the day before. King Bolton and his family sit in the crowd. You think he wants to lose the game in front of everybody? And maybe it's too easy. And like Chris Finch would build a defensive scheme around Gary Trent and make it very hard for him. It's like, oh, he's going to go to Gary for sure. But I don't even remember if Gary was on the court at that time. It's like he disappeared in the last bit. Like I read that section of what people are doing. Okay, he missed a 3. He had 2 3-point shots in that 8 minutes that he missed both those threes. So in some ways, he is just as guilty as OG because he missed a couple threes also. But Fred didn't try and take any threes late in the game. Why is that? Why are you not trying to take threes at the end of the game, Fred, in the last 5 minutes? Because you can hit those clutch threes for us. Forgettable saying Precious looking good. No Chris last night. Not feeling well. Bad practice session. Can only speculate, which is a useless activity. Be positive, folks. Although it seems irrational, vibes matter. They really do. And that's why when things are good, they really stack on more good feelings. And when things are bad, it's really hard. This is why a team can get stuck as a lottery team and a bad team for years and years to come, because it's a mindset, it's a culture, it's a thing that grows around it. And we don't want to grow that culture around this team. And that's why we got to temper the mindset of our fan nation to a degree to be more positive, to be more in that kind of realm, because we can make it even harder for everything on the outside by the buzz and the vibes being bad. So yeah, I'm with that. And it could be that Chris didn't feel well, and he looked like it in the practice, and that's why he didn't play last night. He did look really bad in that interview. He looked like he was bad energy. So that could be exactly what it is. That could be exactly right. Forgetful. Click saying they have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole. We don't. I know these guys are better shooters in certain ways, but it's still a comparable situation. So it's like I said, we're like the Golden State Warriors on Wish. In some ways, we really are. I'm a fun guy saying this is why I feel Siakam is soft. A real superstar doesn't look like what he's looked like the last few games. Weak, scared, tired, follower, bad ISO. Siakam only dominates on bad to average teams. I wonder about this. And this is what I'm saying. Siakam, you want to continue to get better. Look, you've shown that you can do the output. You've shown that you can be all NBA. You've shown you can do this 52 against Madison Square Garden. Well, the next part of being a superstar, and this may be where the race between you and Scottie gets to, is who can be the dominant superstar that actually is like totally taking over and carrying the team to the win. Because this is the thing, you're a superstar in a way where you can score a lot of points and help us to the victory. But oftentimes in clutch times, you're not the one scoring the points to make us win. It's like you're scoring a lot of points earlier, but in the late situations of game, you're nowhere to be found. And that is something that I want him to like think about, especially in this offseason coming up. Precious, Pascal, I could say all three of them actually. Who's going to be the person that takes over for the Raptors and carries them to the victory as a clutch offensive superstar like Dame Lillard would? Who's going to be that guy like a LeBron would have in the back in the day? Because we want somebody like that on this team. We obviously need a superstar, as Charles would put it on TNT. We need a superstar. And a superstar carries their team in clutch situations to the victory. And Siakam, you're not totally this yet. That this is maybe the next level you need to get to improve to be the best absolute NBA player that you can be. You've got to get to this level where you're just untouchable and that you win games by carrying your team on your back. In some ways, Fred's been this guy way more than you in recent years. And he hasn't gotten enough credit for taking that tough role. People actually crap on him because he fails sometimes. But he's also the guy who has the balls to step up and try and do this. And that's what I want. And if you're not going to do this, Scottie may come up and do this before you and become that guy ahead of you. And I'm not against that happening. If it naturally happens that way and Scottie just becomes our clutch go-to guy, dominant scorer at the end of the game and wins games for us, so be it. But Siakam, this will show that you really are the Robin, just like you were with Kawhi. And then you'll be a Robin with your new Batman being Scottie Barnes. And I have no problem with it. It all works out. And Siakam's so good, and I love him. This isn't a total diss on him. This is just that there's different levels of superstar and levels of like taking over and being the man on the court. And that Siakam is not totally the man in clutch situations where he just takes over and says, I got the Raptors back and we're winning no matter what. We see other guys do that more for other teams or Fred on our team. Scottie's trying a little bit now at this point. He really is. So it's an interesting critique. And I think it's fair to a degree in the way that I just said. Carlos is saying, happy Friday, Raptor Freaks. Wonderful choke job last night. Oh, my gosh. I don't know. It's wonderful. I wouldn't describe it that way, but I would describe it as a choke job. That really was a choke. That we had that game in hand, and we could have won it. We were up by 12 with 8 minutes to go in the game. What the fuck happened, Raptors? Jay Weezy. Who's Jay Weezy, Blackhawk? That's hilarious, Jay Weezy. Starscream saying the Suns had no one. Check the box score. Okay, so you're upset because of who was there to play in the game for Brooklyn and Phoenix last night. Well, all right, so you're missing Durant, and you had Simmons, and you had Irving, You had pretty much everybody. Utah's not been playing well recently. I noticed he's slumping again right now. And this is something that happened with us. Well, you got good numbers from Seth Curry off the bench. Thomas also. I don't know what's happening here. You said they didn't have anybody. Okay, Chris Paul didn't play. They had Aiton. I know. Listen, this is something similar to what's happening with us. We just lost to the Timberwolves last night by 2 points without Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns. And everybody in Raptors Nation is freaking out about that in the similar way that you're freaking out about this with y'all, Starscream. Well, I'm going to say this right now. Listen, the Phoenix Suns have been a lot of different things in the last year. They've been the most winningest team in the regular season last season. They've been a team that could have gone in the finals, but then got upset and embarrassed by the Warriors in the playoffs last year. And then also, they've been this team that has struggled this year up and down. They have toxic culture around their team with Robert Sarver and DeAndre Ayton and Jay Crowder, different things like that. But listen, they're still a very good team, and they're still very dangerous. And you were playing them at home. And I mean, listen, you could say woulda, coulda, shoulda, and yeah, you shouldn't lose to this thing, but this is the way the NBA is. You will lose against teams you think that you should just win because of missing superstars. It's just how it is. It's like this league is so weird at this point with the parity, and I wouldn't be that upset about this. I know you guys are kind of on a losing streak right now in Brooklyn because Kevin's out, and that's just going to be natural. I mean, in some ways, you really do need all of your guys to be around or you won't win. And that's a similar thing to us. We have to be so perfect with our margin of error is very small. And if we have that error is too big, we're going to lose every time. And in some ways, without Kevin, it's the same thing for you guys. And I see that you guys have lost 4 games in a row to Boston, Oklahoma City, San Antonio, and Phoenix. It's just a tough time. You need to get Durant back. That's just basically it. You can't do it just with Kyrie, obviously. G saying Memphis is young, but have Steven Adams as a vet center. I know I harp on this, but I truly believe that they had an experienced, strong big like Adams or Al Horford, the team would look so much better. I think that you're right. I still think that Kem could be this guy to a degree, and he's just not getting utilized. Jordan Poole was a draft pick from their tanking year, though. They built through the draft during their down years. Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what Scottie is, too. Our down year got us the 4th pick and we got Scottie. And in some ways, Koloko was just a gem, really, really smart first rounder that we got in the 2nd round. So, there's some similarities. Your guys are right. The Warriors in some ways are a different level, but there's more similarities than differences in some ways. All right, let me keep going. Monique saying the T word doesn't exist around here. Raptors forever. The C word for me doesn't exist. The T word I will talk about and negotiate later. Randolph Phillips, Alex, we see the young guys from other teams play at that end of the games and beat us. I know. That's crazy. Like that is a young, inexperienced Timberwolves team. They are very young and they don't have a lot of like older leaders on that team, and they still figured it out. I give a lot of credit to Chris Finch. D'Angelo Russell is kind of a vet at this point. He has learned a lot over his time, and he's had a lot of hardships and adversity in his NBA career. So in some ways, he is a savvy vet. But, Edwards is only 21. It's crazy how young he is. And some of the other guys on that team are so young. They have a very inexperienced team. But, yeah, talent is very good on that team also. So it's tough. It's tough. Blessings to you, Randolph Phillips. Carlos is saying that last defensive sequence where Fred VanVleet was baited into the foul was so frustrating. Fred VanVleet, you should know as a vet not to stick your hands. Once again, I don't think what he did was wrong, and it would have happened to anybody. It would have happened to anybody. It's just a very smart, intelligent decision by D'Angelo Russell and maybe Chris Finch directing him to do that. That's just a very good coaching decision if he did tell him to do that, or just a very smart vet decision by D'Angelo. I can't get mad at Fred for that. That is just a standard thing that people have been doing recently, and they're getting a lot of I just think it's a really cheap way to do it. It's not dirty. It's just cheap. It's just anyway. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it too much, and it's not really something that was very, very much crucial to why we lost. It did hurt, sure, and put them ahead for the 2 points ahead of us, but we should have made a play. We had enough time on the shot clock at the end of the game to win the game. and just beat them. That OG missing that shot is probably more important than Fred putting him on the line. Blackhawk saying, I like Jay Weezy, but I'm not benching OG. Oh, you're talking Jay Weezy is Joe. Jay Weezy, that's what you're talking about. Okay. But I'm not benching OG. Defense cannot be sacrificed. Our offense has been good enough. It's just our defense that needs to tighten up. See, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I think that there's it's tough to say. It's tough to say because the problem is we have problems on both ends of the court. Usually we're really good at one end of the court and really bad at the other. There's years that the Raptors were an incredible offensive team, but no defense. And then there's years that we were a very, very good defensive team. We just can't score. It's not totally evident which side is the one that's in the most trouble. In some ways, I would say it's easy. It's the offensive side. But some ways, I'm not totally sure. I don't know which side is in worse shape and we need more help with defense or offense. In some ways, I just say we just need more offense because the league's going in an offensive direction. Fun guy saying, wow, that is awesome observing because I saw the practice interview too and saw how fucking tired Siakam looked. And he was screaming at my TV about why, and I was screaming at my TV about why he looks tired already. Spilled onto the game, shaking my head. Yeah, I mean, listen, I would just say this. Like, I've seen a practice from going to the open coach's house, and they really go crazy for like 45 minutes straight. And it could very well be that they had just came right out of the practice and that they were sitting there and they were a little tired. They might have caught them a little too quick because in some ways that you're in a visitor arena, you do your practice, you get done, you go right to the hotel and just like don't mess around. It's not like you hang around too much. And it may be that they were catching them right after working out. It could be also that maybe they didn't sleep well the night before or something. Who knows what it could have been? There's all kinds of different things. But yeah, their energy did look bad yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, they did look really tired. Blackhawk saying we need to relax on building the team for Scottie versus Pascal because it's the same answer. Get shooters, backup point guard, and starting center. Jay Weezy looks good as a shooter from form wise, but he needs to do it more. Yeah, yeah, I think he looks fantastic, and I love that he's taller. He's not like a shorter guy. He's like 6'6", and he doesn't look totally bad on defense. He was really rotating really well. There's a lot of things about Weiskamp that I really like. Yeah, and it's not a Scottie versus Fred. It's not a Scottie versus Pascal. It's none of this versus stuff. They are all very much on the same team and love each other, and they know that they can work together and make each other's lives much easier and simple. That we can't think about it as a us versus them kind of thing. It's a abundance mindset. Everybody can feed, everybody can feast, everybody can fit together, and everybody can do things together to be successful. And that's really like Scottie's going to help Pascal. Pascal will help Scottie. Fred will help Pascal. Pascal will help Fred. Fred will help Scottie. Scottie will help Fred. It's all that kind of stuff. It's all that kind of stuff. Top of top saying, I love the raps. It's like having a 28-year-old child you grew up with, but we have a great opportunity to rebuild around Scottie here, and it might even be a quick retool if done properly. Yes, that's what I'm hoping, and I hope that this be true. In some ways, these may be the tough lessons we just need to get out of the way and have learned. They're just mandatory, and we just got to go through them. This is just part of the path for Scottie as an NBA player, that he's got to go through this stuff, the adversity, so that he understands. LeBron had adversity in Cleveland in his early years. Michael Jordan had adversity in his early years with Chicago. Kobe Bryant has had adversity years where his team was not very good, and he had to learn more to expand his game through losing. So this is just normal. Every team, every superstar is going to go through this at some point in their career, unless they're Tim Duncan in some way. So, all right, let's see. G saying, when people say build around Scottie, what does that mean? Genuine question. Young teams like Rockets and Pistons with their stars make a ton of mistakes, and defense will be centered around Scottie. I know what you kind of mean with this question. I mean, it's really that you kind of understand that he's your franchise player and that kind of like you want to keep him in mind in every move that you're making from now on. And you kind of want to have like people that will really enhance him and he can enhance them. That kind of thing. You don't want anybody who's duplicitous with him too much, that gives exactly the same or kind of would be stepping on toes as far as roles. I don't know. I mean, in some ways, we've been building around Pascal and Fred already, but that's what I'm saying. We shift more to like idea of like we're building with Scottie for the long term, and I think they've already been doing this. I think that this is just naturally happening anyway. Ronna Dan saying this team reminds me of the Rudy Gay Raptor team. I mean, maybe the way they're losing, maybe the way that they're not able to control games at the end of the game and win. Yeah, I mean, there was that period of time. This is very much the way a team goes through stages of winning. Is that they're really bad and they are routed all the time. They never get anywhere close to winning. They're really really bad and they're like a 15 win team for the whole season. Or then they start to get closer and they battle and they compete. Maybe they have the lead for a little while, but they still lose by the end of the game because they're just not good enough, as good as the other team. And there's different levels of losing, levels of strata. And we're actually near one of the top losing levels that is just close to being over the cusp and being winning and having everything go into winning ways. It's like from my educated mind of watching expansion Orlando Magic from the early 90s, watching the expansion Raptors through the late 90s into the 2000s, watching how they changed from Bosch into like that era you're talking about with Rudy Gay around that time with DeMar and all the different like levels of like stair steps to get back to being always a winning team, a top playoff team. You have to see the different benchmarks and the different signs of where the team is at. And like close losses, like a lot of the losses and the things that have happened to us this year are showing that we are still very close to being a winning team. And it's just that it's very close. It's a lot closer than we think. We're not like a very, very shitty team like Charlotte. We have a lot going for us, and it's just not totally functioning correctly. That could change, though. It could change and be functioning correctly very soon. And I hope it does. It's just that last night is like just a loss. It sucked. It's just a stupid loss. All right, let's see. Fun guy saying, i.e., that Curb Your Enthusiasm theme went hard during the game. Yeah, that was awful. I love that show, and I really love that motif of like bumbling idiot, like you're just living your life and you get into situations that are just crazy, and then no, I didn't mean to say that. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, it's funny. That they were using that and it was really apropos. I have to give them kudos, and it really like it was funny too because of the way Pat Frere and Tom Washington were like really taking their time at the end of the game and dragged out that last half second. They really wanted to look at that play a lot. I thought that they were about to call it a foul and put Scottie on the line. And if they'd done that, I would have been like, yes, but they didn't do that. They had the opportunity because Scottie did actually kind of get fouled on his hand by the Timberwolf that knocked the ball out of his hands in that play. And that if they really wanted to make things exciting, they should have put him on the line for two. And he would have made them, and then maybe we would have gone to overtime. And there was a very, very slim chance that they might have changed it on the challenge. Nick hadn't used the challenge. So he's like, all right, I'm going to challenge the out of bounds play. Well, I wish they'd gone and looked at it and said, well, Scottie actually got fouled on that call. So we're going to call a foul on that Minnesota Timberwolf player and put him on the line so that he could tie the game up with 0.4 seconds left on the clock. And then boom, there's overtime. That could have happened. But they didn't do that. And in some ways, I'm mad. I mean, they could have done it. They seriously could have done that. And we could have had more life in that game. But they didn't. They said, we're just going to go home. And that's that. And that sucks. That sucks in some ways. But it should have never gotten to that point. We should have kept the double-digit lead right up until the end and just won the fucking game. It should have never gotten close in any of this kind of shit happening. Blackhawks saying Rockets and Pistons do not emphasize winning habits. That's how they stay in the lottery. Tanking is not good for long-term health of an organization. It's only good for cap space. Yeah, I completely agree with everything Blackhawks saying here. And yeah, that's what's happening with the Rockets. And the Pistons are trying to change the culture with Dwayne Casey being there. And in some ways, his career in Detroit will be very much like his career with Toronto. He's going to get them out of the mud, and they're going to make the playoffs. And it could be next year because Cade was hurt this year. They didn't do as well this year. And it may be that Cade comes back next year. They have a really shitty year this year. They get a really high draft pick, and boom, Cade Cunningham, who didn't play this whole year, comes back, and they get a number one pick from that draft back and the good pick from this year. And then next year, all of a sudden, Detroit's a playoff team. So it can happen that way. But I think you're right. The Rockets and the Sixers, two franchises in particular, that tanked on purpose, and they have had a really, really hard time changing their culture back to being winning cultures again. Philly's looking like they got it back, though. Carlos is saying, agree. Minutes look like it's catching up to the starters. Masai and Bobby need to set a mandate to Nick Nurse. Have a little sit down with him. Say, look, you can't be running Pascal into the ground. We need him around for the years to come, and you're overplaying him. Please think about the future. Guardian Transit saying Weiskamp played well in his debut. He sure did. He played the exact same way in the 905 game, too, hitting almost everything. I think he was 4 for 5 for 3 in the 905 game. And in this one, he was 3 for 3. I like it. Max is saying, why isn't Gary our guy for the last shot? I don't understand that either. He definitely should be. And I am in complete agreement with you, Max, that, it's not that we want to have a designated guy like we used to with Lou Williams. It's just that we want to have, very capable, different, like maybe 3 or 4 options that we go to all the time. But Gary should definitely be one of those guys. Fred, Gary, and probably I would say maybe OG still, not Pascal as much, just because he doesn't do it. He's not practicing clutch and trying to win games at the last second for us. It's just not part of his character or his player DNA. For some reason, he's just not that dude. Maybe it's because they really know that he's just going to get keyed on and he's just not getting freed because they're really, really doubling him down. I don't know. I wish he would be more, showing up in the last minutes of games. Pascal Siakam. Fun guy saying we had some good fundamental offensive guys early season like Armani Brooks and DJ Wilson and got rid of them. Front office deserves massive blame. Like no center in 2023, relying on Koloko, shaking my head. I don't know. See, like you guys can easily say, like Yuta, DJ Wilson, Armani Brooks. Why didn't we keep these great players like last year? Sam Decker. People, these guys weren't good enough. And like we're looking at them in rose-colored glasses of like the very best of them. It's not like Armani Brooks would be playing for us still. He would be bombing all these threes and being our savior right now. No, he'd be breaking them and missing them just like Malachi Flynn. So these guys were not saviors for us. Don't get it twisted. None of them were. And even like I said, Yuta may have been the best three-point shooting player in the league. Recently, he's playing like shit. So it's like you can't just say these guys are all saviors and you show up and they woulda, coulda, shoulda. If we kept them around, things would be different. No, I don't believe that. They decided not to keep DJ Wilson for a reason. And I mean, I don't totally understand. I wanted them to keep DJ Wilson over Justin Champagnie. Well, they don't have Justin Champagnie anymore now. And they could have had DJ Wilson still at this point. And maybe he would have been a good three-point shooter. I don't know. I still don't think these guys would be like the saviors or the end-all like answer to what's happened recently. Carlos saying one thing I don't understand is coaches used to put in shooters on a situation where you're down one possession. Why didn't Nick Nurse put in Weiskamp on that last possession? Yeah, there's something lost in the art of defensive and offensive substitutions at the end of the game. You put a Mitchell Robinson out there for a rebound, and you take him right back out for like a three-point shooter on the offensive end. You want him on the defensive end, and you sub him in and out like that. Coaches used to do this all the time in the league, and some still do. But Nick Nurse has never done this. And I don't understand why you don't do these kind of defensive and offensive substitutions like really quickly in and out at the end of games. You want a better rebounder for a free throw, you put him in, you take him out, and then you put Joe in for the offensive side of things. Why are you not doing that, Nick? This is another thing that's in the coach's book that I've never seen you ever do hardly, where you do a substitution with one slot for defensive and offensive ends. Yeah, I don't see that. I'm not seeing that. And that's something Carlos is talking about right here. Top of Top saying the shots Pascal and Fred took at the end were bad. Scottie needed more touches. Nick Nurse is stubborn, not playing bench. Specifically, Doughton and Weiskamp is a mistake. Yeah. Nick, listen, I'm trying to stand up for you against the Raptor fans that don't want you anymore. They're upset with you. But in some ways, you're not helping me by not playing more of your guys. You got to do this. G saying, you brought up something. Starters have to score 20 each and the bench around 20 to win, it seems. Or one player to go off and score over 40. Not realistic or sustainable. More bench needed. This is exactly why we're not winning. It's like we're calculated to not win. And that's why there may be a sell tank that's already been calculated for this. And that maybe holding the minutes so strong on the starters, they know it won't add up to winning. And that maybe we are trying to lose on purpose because it's just true. How do you make 130 points when you only play 6 players? Really, seriously, how do you do that? How do you do that? You got to do it in your head. All right, well, 6 players, 7 players, 130 points. That means all of them have to score like 20 points almost. So seriously, Nick, you got to figure this out to get the offensive punch to match the scoring outcomes of other teams and how much they can score and how quickly. Well, we don't have enough firepower, and maybe that's by design, and maybe that is a stealth tank. So who knows? Uh, let's see. Marlon Toby's here. Good to see Marlon. It's been a bit. We miss you, Marlon. Nick is basically killing our development pipeline by not playing our bench. As head coach, it's his job to make sure the team is ready strategically. I know. And there's a couple things he's doing he's failing at. I don't like it. I do not like it. I don't know if he's necessarily destroying our development pipeline, though. I think that we're still getting guys developed and bringing them up. It's just that he has his pet projects that he really keys on, like Scottie Barnes and Koloko. And that's probably the right guys to really key on. But still, it does seem like he could be developing some secondary guys, some shooter guys on the periphery. They'll really help our team quality overall. That's not happening. He really is on the main, really important main guys more. Cool Cat's saying, we want Scottie to develop how Pascal, Fred, OG were developed under like Kyle, DeMar, Kawhi, how to win a chip. Scottie also has to experience team scheme for him. He gets better looks because of Pascal. That is true. That is definitely true. That Pascal gives him better looks. Let's see. Yeah, everybody's a different career path and different settings around them when they come in the league. These guys were lucky to have DeMar and Kyle around, and just like in the same way that Scottie's lucky to have Fred and Pascal, that they will help him in a lot of ways, but they're different leaders too in the way they're going to rub off on them and stuff. We got to give it time. Fun guy saying, okay, here's my perception of the directions we could go with the future. And Nick, you make massive trades and keep Nurse to work with new players, or you fire Nurse and keep majority of the core with a new coach. Ooh, wow. Those are the only two outcomes. Oh, man. I don't know. I don't know if I like the second one for sure. I still think, man, you just can't get rid of Nurse. I'm sorry. You just can't. He's a Spoelstra. He's a Kerr. He's a Popovich. And there aren't many of these guys around. He's like one of the top 6 best coaches in the league. He really, really is. I mean, we just have to, sometimes we just have to do a reality check. Fred is a champion. Fred is this, he's that. We've been doing this for the Fred haters recently. Let's just do a reality check with Nick Nurse. He is one of the top 6 coaches in this league right now. You find 6 coaches that are better than him in this league, seriously. And understand that that is a huge strength for us and that we need him on this team. So he can't go nowhere. Forgetful saying Fred shot over 50% plus 10 assists. Playing extremely well with Scottie. Still not enough for people who eat hate for nutrition. No, it's still not enough. But I think it's because of what we've been talking about. The Raptors just don't add up to enough to win. And it's not that they're not good enough as far as talent, each individual. It's just that we don't have a good enough roster overall. Or maybe Nick is just not utilizing enough of the roster overall to add up to winning. And that is a really big thing. It may be calculated. This may be very calculated and stealthily done. That may be. These guys are smart guys. In some ways, it's like there's something not adding up about intelligence and how to win and like understanding this about what we're describing about having enough points to get to a total point score that wins in the NBA right now. That they're really handicapping themselves in a really weird, specific way, and I think it is very much on purpose. It's very strange. If it's not on purpose, well, Nick, at least you know what you're doing wrong, and you should be able to fix it really quickly, and then we can start winning. Because it really is this minutes distribution, the rotations, and not having enough guys get chances to add to the total score to make it high enough to beat the other team. So Carlos is saying, as bad as it gets, we're at a point in the season. It's just a couple of wins. We're back in the action. Next 7 games are brutal, though. This is what we've been saying for like a month now. It's like, well, we'll see what happens. The next stretch is so key and important. They all are. They all are. And yeah, we're going to have to see. And we'll keep adjusting and overreacting as a fan nation. And just keep going. It's just that the season, one way or another, will continue. There will be a jump ball at Scotiabank Arena tomorrow night between Boston Celtics and the Toronto Raptors. Unless there's a pandemic and a shutdown like there was that one season, the season will continue, and they will continue to play games, win or lose. and we'll just go through the motions, and we'll go through the rest of the season and just see how it all goes. We'll see how it all goes game by game. MK saying Scoot and Scottie, Scoot and Scottie. He's all about that alliterative tandem of Scoot and Scottie. I'm all about it too. I think it would be fun if that happened. If it works out that way, hey, we'll see how it goes. Click saying I'm not falling into this false hope. I'm sorry. I don't. Hang on, jumped. All right, I gotta make sure I find it. Okay, I'm not falling into this false hope. I'm sorry. I don't see it happening. It is what it is. Just watch the games, win or lose, take it for what it is. That's it. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the same way as you. It's just that in some ways, like once again, like somebody else on this channel earlier, you're coming at from it from the little bit of the cynical side. I'm coming from it from the little bit of the optimistic side. But I'm in the same way. I'm just watching the games, taking them as they come. Last night sucked. Yeah, okay, we lost, but I can't overreact or get too emotionally tied to it like I have in the past because it's just not going to serve me or what's worth torturing myself like that. There is a certain level of detachment that we have to take right now as Raptor fans, but still stay engaged and caring about what's happening with the team and things like that. So let's see. Cool Cat saying, Coach Thorpe words becoming a reality. In his podcast, he worked on some development stuff with Pascal over the summer. Mentioned Pascal's a great player, but worries about Nurse's style on Raptors' bodies. Well, maybe Nick needs to meet with Coach Thorpe and talk to him about his concerns. Maybe he'll illuminate something for him. Nick, keep your eyes and ears open. I know you're always a sponge and reading books and learning. You need to listen to us. If you listen, if somehow I get in your ear or the things that we talk about on this stream get in your ear somehow, listen to what we're saying. And maybe he's listening to the most important person. That's Masai Ujiri. And he's telling him to do things the way he's doing them right now. So who knows? But it sounds like Coach Thorpe needs to talk to Nick Nurse about his concerns about Pascal Siakam. Seriously, because I'm worried about this too, especially if this coach is thinking this. Nameless is saying Raptors are like scientists, chemists. They have to play around with the formulas before they find what works. They don't just go in the lab, throw the first two things together, and find an answer. I think this is a very good analogy or comparison. That it's like there's different formulas that we're trying on the court, different combinations, like a combination lock, and you got to keep spinning them, and finally it'll click, and you'll be able to open the lock. And get into the locker and get the good stuff. And I think it's the same thing. It's like whatever they're trying to build, maybe they pour a couple things in and poof, it blows up in their face a couple times. But at one point, maybe they get the formula exactly right, and boom, things start working again. And I think this is a very good comparison by Nameless. I really do. Carlos is saying, so true. Every experiment go through different iterations before having that winning formula. It's just so frustrating to go through. But in the end, we are just spectators, ride and enjoy and just enjoy. Yeah. Yeah. That's just what it is. It's like, look, they're trying and they're trying different stuff and hopefully they'll figure it out. But it's like science. They have to experiment. They have to be bold and try things and they may fail. There's success and failure in trying things in anything you do in your life. And, you may have failure. Well, some people fail and they don't try ever again. And they never find out, well, if they tried a couple more times, it would have been a huge success at what they did. But they had a little bit of resistance at first. They said, no. And they didn't press on and get the good stuff if they had tried further. And this is kind of what's happening with us, but we're forced to because we have no alternatives. It's the NBA. We have to play the games. We have to try and try and try. Well, that's the thing. They're forcing us to try it over again. We could easily just throw our hands up and say, well, we suck. Let's fold as a franchise. No. That's not what we're going to do. So, yeah, we got to keep trying, and we will. Popa Positivity's here. I'm just happy we have my rookie of the year, Scottie Barnes. That's right, Jimmy Pope. Just keep it real and positive. Thank you. Thank you for coming in and being a breath of fresh air and reminding us Scottie Barnes is on our team. He wears a Raptors jersey, and that is the thing that is so nice and awesome. Nameless is saying, exactly, Carlos. It's not realistic to expect science to find cures for illnesses on the very first attempt. It takes trial and error, sometimes years. That's right. That's right, guys. Philip's saying, I'm sad about this season. I had so much hope after we smoked Atlanta and San Antonio back-to-backs by like 80 combined points early in the season. I know. Wasn't that a great time right around Halloween? When we beat the Hawks, I was at that game. That was so much fun, that game against the Hawks. And then beating the Spurs, very similar way, the next game too. Yes, there were high hopes at that time and things were going well. This was before Siakam got hurt. And that's what I'm saying. It is things can happen real quick. And that's why this NBA season is a long grind full of good things that happen because of your skill level and you do really well and you're a good team, but also luck and health and different things like that are a factor in how your season can go also. So it's not just you could be a really good team and be set up to succeed like it seemed like we were at the beginning of the season, and then very bad things happen, in some ways. Rana Dan saying, Raptors fan fell in love with Siakam and Fred VanVleet's underdog story without realizing that these two are at their best are all-stars, and on championship teams, they are role players. In some ways, I'm not going to disagree with you. You're right. From where these guys have come from, they're underdogs, and they really have overachieved to a certain level. And it's weird for us to think that they will just continue to overachieve, and that they're not really like Steph Curry or Scottie Barnes or certain really high level talent players that came in and were a certain thing already. These guys made themselves into this. And in some ways, their ceiling is lower, partly because of that, in some ways. And we do need to temper expectations in some ways about them. But once again, these guys are like huge investments that have really paid off over the long term for us. And we need to keep them around to continue to get the great returns from investing in them for so long. They go to other places, we don't get those returns anymore of making something out of nothing, because that's really what Fred and Pascal are in a way. They are both guys who came from nowhere that were made into something. And you can ask anybody who's involved in economics and trade and stuff. When you make something out of nothing, it is inherently way more valuable than something you had to buy and resell. And that's what I'm saying is the value is in keeping them here. It's kind of like you get a really good collection of comics and you love them, but in some ways you need the money. You want to sell them. Well, they mean so much more to you sentimentally because they were yours from when you were a kid. And they won't mean as much when they go to the other person. And you value them way more than other people in some ways. But you have to sell them just to make something up. You may regret that. You may be like, oh man, I miss my memories and my comics. But I had to sell them at that point. I don't know. It's a very tough decision that's going to have to be made about our players and who stays and who doesn't and why and what. And in some ways, these guys are favored. And yeah, we are in love with them and we should be because they're champions for our team. They're great guys. They've worked so hard and they made themselves into something out of nothing. And that's why, sure. And yeah, and the business people will be like, well, we can be cutthroat and we don't give a shit. And there's no sentimentality. Nah, we don't run our team that way. And I like that. It is not that way. I would hate if our team was just really impersonal, not humanistic, and didn't take into account the players and having it like a family. I would hate our team, like in some ways, if the front office was acting like that. It's a family attitude and atmosphere. And that's really important. And that's part of it. It's not just the fans, it's the front office. OG Van Barnes, Van Anobi, Junior 43, Juancho Hernan Gomez Bo Cruz is here. He had the best game of his season, not his career. No, I think he had his best game of his season last night, Scottie Barnes. Yeah, of course he did. It's the latest one, and he kicked so much ass. Maybe he had a better game against what's the game they won earlier this week, New York. That game. Maybe he did have a better game in that New York game. But statistically, I think he had I'm just gonna say he's gonna continue to have his best game of his career going forward. It's not even the stats of what he did last night. It's about how he controlled things and how he threw his weight around and how dominant he was around the basket and how aggressive he was and how he was like taking charge. That's why I would say he had his best game. It may not be statistically his best game, but he played his best level as a player in the NBA in some ways in the game last night. Just more dominant. That's what I mean. Carlos is saying the hope is still there. These guys know how to play winning basketball. They just need to relearn that. Yeah, I agree with that. Carlos, they're going to get it figured out. And at Ronadan, Toronto isn't really a free agent draw, so you build up the players you have and develop. Did we really have any choice not to love the players we have? Exactly. Carlos is like, how can we not love them? How can we not love them? We're supposed to love them. They're our guys. They're our teammates, our team dudes. And like, that's the thing. It's like, players, people that hate the players. That's why I wonder, do you really like the Raptors? You got to like the team. You got to like the players to like the team. And I know some people are like, well, I like the whole team, except I hate Fred or something like that. I just don't get that. Why do you have to pick one person to hate? If you don't like somebody on the team, just don't talk about them. You could, I don't like people that are like headhunting. They're always wanting to send people out of here, and they think that they just make a social campaign on social media. They're like, oh, Fred sucks. They can drive him out or do something like, or have some sort of power over that. You don't have power over it, and all you are just annoying noise is what you have. So just stop, please. Ronadan Santa Carlos, develop your players as much as you can, like Siakam and Fred, but be ready to trade for key players that fit Barnes. Yeah, I mean, I can see that side of things too. We want to do what's best for the Raptors to win championships. And I don't know what those best decisions are, like Bobby and Masai would know. So I just got to trust in them that they know what's best for us to get more Larry O'Briens. And if they do something crazy like trade DeMar for Kawhi Leonard, then we'll just have to see why they did it and trust in them and see hopefully that it works out. Because this is a period of time where what happens with the Raptors could be wide open, and we have no idea what they're going to do. If they don't do anything, I trust in Bobby Masai. If they do something, I'll trust in Bobby Masai that is the best move that they'll do. And we'll just have to see how it goes. I don't like everybody dissing them too recently, saying that they haven't made very good deals and moves recently. I think that's fucking wrong. I think that Bobby Masai have been fantastic, even since the championship years. A lot of people say they haven't been as good since, but that's not true. They've had to really deal with some tough situations. They did want to get in the Giannis sweepstakes, and maybe that was a fail, reorienting our team and our salary cap to try and fit Giannis into it, with him not even going anywhere, and then like it didn't happen. Well, but still, they tried to make the opportunity happen just in case. And in some ways, you can't say woulda, coulda, shoulda on that. They had to do what they thought was best at that time. And I don't agree with his narrative saying that the front office has been fucking up since the championship. I think that's completely wrong. I think that we've been doing the best we can, considering every situation, like going to Tampa, like possibly trying to get Giannis, like not having any centers, and different things that are happening with the center thing is very strange to me. I'm wondering if they're like blacklisted from being able to get centers from other teams. We talked about this before. That is like Cleveland can have like 5 centers. Why can't the Raptors have one guy over 7 foot? Is there some sort of weird dark Illuminati thing going on in the NBA where they freeze us out from being able to get centers? I don't know. Probably not. That's probably just crazy paranoid talk. All right, let's see. Carlos saying the thing is fans could love anyone and be attached to any player, but does that really affect who gets traded? Isn't it the front office choice to do that? In the end, we're just spectators. Exactly. I love that you keep reiterating this, because I think it's the ego of the fan that thinks that they have power in any situation that has to do with the NBA. Maybe in some ways we do as a collective, as the voice of the fan nation, to like influence them in certain ways. I know that fan nations in New York have influenced franchises to fire coaches and GMs because they've been very upset in the past. And maybe that's part of why these people want to do this, is they want to flex their muscle and say, oh, we got rid of Nick Nurse because he pissed us off. Well, I hate that. And I don't want to run anybody out of town as a fan nation. And that's why I'm standing for these guys, because I do really feel like they're good parts of our franchise. They're building blocks and important parts of the foundation. So yeah, I don't like running guys out or talking about running people out. Monique saying, W stream Lex, let's go Raptors. Always keep at it. We support you despite the losses. This team, try and stay positive. And I love all the Raptors you put there, Monique. Yes, she's such a good role model for Raptor fans and staying positive in this hard time. So if you need help with keep your head up and keeping it positive, look to Monique Lawrence. She can help you out. And Jimmy also. I don't like to think I know better than a championship coach. Yeah, none of us do. None of us do. I mean, Nick knows so much detailed, specific stuff about basketball that in some ways, me questioning his decisions and stuff, it sounds stupid. But maybe in some ways, I'm like doing the stupid basic ideas of principles of basketball that I learned from books that I read when I was a little kid that really taught you, like John Wooden, like ideas and principles about basketball. And maybe I don't know all the specific X's and O's of every little thing he's doing, but I do know what winning basketball is built like and what it takes to do it. And that's why I point out maybe little things that I see that he's doing that could be adjusted. And he has adjusted them at times after I've said them, which is very interesting. You know, the little things like getting that high percentage shot down near the basket with OG or Scott in the low post is really smart. This is just basic basketball stuff. And that's what I worry about with Nick is there's some basic basketball stuff that he's not thinking about. Maybe he's trying to be innovative, cutting edge in the NBA, but there's basic bread and butter basketball stuff you're forgetting that's important. And that's what's frustrating the most to me right now. Let's see. Monique's saying there's no better coach out there. Name me one. I'll wait. Yeah, who's going to take the job otherwise? Other people will say, well, it's just like having a girlfriend. You think you have the best girlfriend, but maybe there is a way better girlfriend out there for you to have. You just don't know them. I don't know. This could be true. There could be a better coach out there for the Raptors, but who is it? And would they make that change and make that leap of faith with a new person? That's a big change, especially when most things are fundamentally going well with your coach already. To change it out like that, like what we did with Dwayne Casey, was not really that safe or smart in some ways, but it really paid off in some ways when we fired him as coach of the year. It was really not. Ugh. Let's see. Click saying another thing that pisses me off. We got guys like Saban Lee who got picked up by the Suns when they were on our G League team and actually contributed to wins. Like, what the fuck are we doing? Well, first of all, Saban Lee's not a player I like. And like in a lot of ways, I don't think he should be on the Raptors. He may fit the Suns and the way they play and their style, but I don't think he would fit our team on our main roster. These guys look good. Sterling Brown, Reggie Perry. Everybody's like, why the fuck aren't they playing on our team? Well, it's partly because they aren't good enough to play on our team. If they were, they would be playing on our team. Trust me. There's a very much a difference in level between the G League and the NBA that we don't totally all understand. And this is part of what the disconnect is on this. I don't care if our guys are getting picked up from 905 and going to other teams and kicking ass. That's good. That means our 905 team is good. And but we can't really say, well, they had room and they had the need. They needed somebody and they had the open roster spot and they made that decision. We haven't wanted to mine from our 905 in this kind of way. We're really using the 905 to develop people like Ron Harper Jr. and Delano Banton. And it's not really for like having an extended roster for our team, like some people would think. Our extended roster is the 17 guys, the two ways in the 15-man roster. That's not continuing into Saban Lee, Gabe Brown, Reggie Perry, Hassani Gravett. These guys are on the 905, and they don't really have a path to get on the Raptors just because they're on 905. It's just not that way. They have to do extremely exceptional, and the Raptors would have to have a need and a want and an opening on the main roster to bring them up, and that's just not the case. They're more likely to just bring Ron up or in Delano and just say that they're on the team. And that's just really why it's happening this way. Let's see. Blackhawks saying, watch the game again. And when you see 6'9" working beautifully with 18-point lead, once Nick Nurse went back to Gary Trent and Fred together, the lead started to chip away. We need to stagger Fred and Gary, go with bigger lineup. This is something actually I will agree with to a degree. We've had the 6'9" vision out there and it's been successful at different times. And this is something that the critics of Fred are saying is that we play the big lineup and it does really well. And then we bring Fred out and we have defensive problems. I'm going to really watch this more closely because this is really a big talking point about the Fred haters that what they're saying about him is that he is really a defensive liability and that we need to go with the vision 6'9". So I'm going to pay more close attention to this more to really think about what they're saying, if there is any truth to it. So I'm not, the jury's out on this right now with me, but I will look at this down the road and see if this is something that is actually a phenomenon that's happening. This Vision 6'9" looked really good last year at different times, for real, for sure. And at times it does seem like it too here. MSJ is here, new voice. Hope you come in and join us every day, 9:30 a.m. We're talking Raptors on this channel. And we just want to talk about the current event. And that is a loss, 2 points to Minnesota last night. Do you think maybe stealth losing you talked on is tied to why the Raps give up and hardly guard the three? Because this isn't making sense anymore. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going on with this. I mean, Fred and them used to really care about winning close games and being that team that won games that were within 5 points. In fact, our stats last year for games that had this kind of close outcome, we were always on the winning side, and had one of the best winning percentages in the entire NBA of winning close games within 5 points. And it's not the case this season. And in some ways, it's like, well, if you guys were so good at managing it last year and doing this last year, why aren't you good at it this year? Brian Winders, why are they not as good at managing the last 5 minutes of the game with a 5 point differential or less? What is going on with that? It doesn't make sense, does it, MSJ? It doesn't make sense. And, it may be that word stealth that you're talking about. Evelyn's saying, I'm with you, Monique. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. That's awesome. I love that she's quoting Confucius. Thank you, Evelyn. Our greatest glory is not in never falling, it's in rising every time we fall. Damn, that's like Rocky, right? You get knocked down, get up every time. You get up every time. Isaac Campbell says Scottie Barnes is amazing, guys. Player comparisons are difficult because he is so damn dynamic. Now, I'm not trying to compare him to being LeBron's level. He's going to be himself, but there are potentials for him to be very much the most strongest, best player on the court on any given night in NBA games. That he could grow into this dude and be that guy. He told Grimes the other day, "You is not him." Well, Scottie, we may be saying you is him instead. Blackhawk is saying, rewatch the game and focus on the lineups and see how we start losing our grip on the lead from the second quarter and do not adjust in the third. Nick Nurse owns the lost because the rotation is in his control. Well, if I'm going to blame people, we really got to blame somebody and point fingers. I will point at Nick Nurse for last night. Sure. I have no problem with blaming him for losses. And yeah, but like, well, anything, it's like what we said. You're in the science lab, you're trying different combinations. There's going to be success and failure. And well, he's failing more this year in some ways with some of his chemistry experiments, and they're not working. But yeah, I'll agree with this. I could disagree with his decision to put the ball in OG's hands for the last shot. That's a big place where I'll disagree with him. And then once again, I said it a couple times in the stream. He got outcoached by Chris Finch, and that's got to piss him off because, like I said, they're rivals from like many years of battling each other. They're a friendly rivalry. And that when he came to coach for us, in some ways, he never really was like a friend of Nick's. He's always been a friend of me, like a rival coach that he's always coached against. He's like, well, let's coach together for once and come in and join my team in Tampa. Well, he hangs out, and then the Minnesota job opens up, and they're like, hey, come here. And he's like, strands Nick. So it's like he's not ever been really a friend. It's more like a friendly rival, somebody that he's always competed against. In some ways, is annoying. So that whole dynamic between Chris Finch and Nick Nurse is a long-standing rivalry. It's gone on for 30 years, y'all. This is something that started in the 90s. So that's what I'm saying. This is not a new thing with them. And in some ways, Finch getting D'Angelo to do that move was him winning that game with the coaching decision. And then Nick not having the right decision to counter for the last second of the game to win the game. Yeah, I will blame Nick Nurse for last night. I'm with you with that. And the rotation stuff is within his control also and is a part of it. All right, Isaac saying, I see us at Jurassic Park come April or May still. I love that forecast. I love Isaac Campbell being a very positive Raptor fan in Ottawa, saying that he thinks we're still going to have Jurassic Park open in April and May, and the fans will be coming down there for some playoff basketball. I love that, Isaac. You go, Isaac Campbell. All right, before 3 hours comes, I'm going to wrap things up for last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. Very disappointing loss by the Raptors. We hate it. We hate it. We hate it. It was stupid and it's dumb. 2-point loss. 3 stars for the Knights. Scottie Barnes, number 1 star. Freddie, number 2. And Joe Weiskamp is a star number 3, 3 of 4 from the field. That layup that he missed, people were coming down on him. Look, that's really hard to do, especially with a more athletic player coming behind you. You hear those footsteps, you'll miss it. But as long as he's hitting all those long range threes, we should not be upset with him. We just want a little bit more from you guys. If you're going to overplay the starters, Nick, these guys got to produce and score more. Siakam, 13 is not enough. OG, 15 is not enough. And where was Chris Boucher last night, Nick Nurse? if I'm going to give some kudos to the other side, I got to give some major kudos to D'Angelo Russell. He's somebody that I've sullied in the past, but he actually had a pretty good game last night. 25 points, 8 of 15 from the field. Huge threes that were very important near the end of the game. That Kyle Anderson guy has a very ugly shot, but he makes them. 20 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists. He was a huge factor in the game last night also for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And McDaniels, he's a scary player on the rise with quite an interesting skill set. I didn't see enough from Naz Reid to really make me think he's the center that we need to get to help our team. I'd much rather go in a Jakob Poeltl direction than anybody like Naz Reid. And to me, he doesn't look that much bigger than Precious. He may be slightly taller, but I don't think he's that much of a real center also. I don't think he's actually a real center either. Just real quick, the last 8 minutes of the game were horrible. We could not score. We scored 4 points in the last 8 minutes of the game while the other team scored 16 points or something like that. That is horrible. That is messed up. And a big part of why we lost. If we just scored a couple more points near the end of the game, we would have won this game. We make a couple more free throws. We did horrible at the free throw line once again. We've had 2 games where we shot poorly at the free throw line, and we've lost close margin where we've missed many free throws and got outshot the free throw line. Like, let me do the team stats real quick. We beat them at the field goal percentage, 46 to 87 from the field. We made more field goals, took less field goals than them, shot 53%. We were shooting 60% at the half. There's no reason why we should have lost a game where we shot 53% from the field and they shot 51%. We shot 50% from three-pointers and beat them at the three-point line also. They did make 3 more than us in the end, but we shot a higher percentage. And at the free throw line, we lost, missing 7 free throws out of 27, 74% of the free throw line. They shot 91% from the free throw. That is a much of the margins right there. You miss those 4 free throws, Precious, because there's a wolf crying out, and that is a huge part of why we lose. We just barely won the rebounds by 1. We did get 26 assists, which shows that we were sharing the ball pretty well. The turnovers were very even. That's another area we needed to clean up. We had very few turnovers at the half. We had like 6 turnovers at the half. We got 10 turnovers in the second half. And that was a really huge part of our being dismantled. 12 steals by them were a big part of it. They were getting the passing lanes like we do, and they out-raptored us on the defensive end in the second half with the steals and the turnovers. We dominated points in the paint, 62 to 46. So there's all these stats we won team-wise, and we didn't win the game. And you can look at those free throws, you can look at the turnovers, and those are the huge culprits for what got us. Yeah. MSJ is saying, I just kind of think in this lab with Nick Nurse not having a center, Nick Nurse has his forwards running all over the place, and other teams wait on defensive rotation gaps for all the threes they hit on us. Yeah, that really is a very astute way of describing the other team's offensive game plans for how to dismantle our defense, is make us run all around and rotate as much as possible and just work through it. And you will finally find that 3-point shooter that will be wide open, probably in the corner, and getting an open look. This is such a good, astute way of describing what's the phenomena of what's happening, MSJ. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you putting it in those words. Yeah, I won't disagree with it. It is exactly what's happening. Isaac saying, we the North. And Tom Duke saying, W stream, Lex. Enjoy your day, sir. Go Raptors. Winning still solves everything. That's right. And Monique saying, congratulations on 3 hours. Thank you, Monique. I'm tired. My throat is starting to get sore from talking so much. All right, guys, let me just wrap it all up. Finally, I got Yuta Watanabe on Instagram for a second, and he's talking about his favorite things. They're asking about what's your favorite moment from your career, first time I played in the NBA, favorite dream job if you're not in the NBA, he wants to play in the MLB. His favorite baseball player is Otani. His guy. His favorite city to play in on the road is Toronto. That's right. I loved hearing that from Yuta and his fun little clip there of talking about his favorite things. He's saying his favorite place to play on the road is Toronto now. Of course it is Toronto. We love you, Yuta, and stuff like that. Let's go, Lexathon. I appreciate that, Edmund. All right, guys. Thanks. Please like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy my channel. And I'll see y'all tomorrow for a preview for the Boston Celtics. Big time, baby. #1 team in the East. We got to play them tomorrow night here at home, and hopefully we can beat them and get some good feelings. Winning solves everything. So let's win against a team that we have no business beating, because if we do beat them, there'll be a lot of good feelings after that. So that's the way you do it. You forget the last game, the disappointment of the last game, and take the next game as an opportunity to get yourself in a better mindset, because you could kick their ass. Oh, yeah. And if we can't beat the Boston tomorrow, then we get a second chance against New York on Sunday right away. So I'll see you guys tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. for all the regular stuff, the refs, and everything that I always do for the preview tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Thank you, and stay true and positive, Raptor fans. There's going to be a lot of negativity, a lot of people jumping off the bandwagon and are going somewhere else, a lot of people that just want to kick us while we're down and talk shit. Stay positive and stay true to your team and believe in them. And let's not tear down people or point fingers too much and come after people publicly that we want them off the team. That's silly stuff. The GM will figure this out and they will do their job. And we just need to realize, as many people have said on this channel today, we are the spectators. We don't really have power in this. And that we need to just go for the flow. And if it's not constructive or helpful to the team winning in the long run or positive things, then just hold your tongue and just maybe not even get involved or say anything, because the noise is not helping. It is not, obviously. All right, Summer saying, would you trade on the base of Pascal for DeJounte and Collins? I don't want DeJounte, first of all. Man, I don't like that guy at all. You know, I'm really glad Popovich traded him from San Antonio, because he's a jackass. I hate what he's saying recently about Tony Parker. I think he's full of shit for saying it, first of all. And if anything was wrong with the Spurs organization, it was him. It's not the Spurs organization, bro. Don't get it twisted. The Spurs organization has been very good to a lot of players who've come through it for 30 years since Pop's been around there. And the anomaly is you, bro. You're a knucklehead. I know you're from the street and you're just a kid who's kind of from, the street and not very smart. And that may be part of the problem. Is some of it is that you're just kind of like full of yourself. And you got a few problems yourself. So you go ahead and blame Tony Parker for not hanging around and mentoring you. Yeah, whatever. That's so lame and so dumb. And I stand with Spurs Nation as far as like DeJounte. We're glad your ass is gone. You're a punk ass and you talk out your ass. I don't want him on this team. I don't care how good he is. He's an idiot. He's a punk and he's a problem for Atlanta. And I don't want him anywhere near this team. And John Collins is fake stuff too. I don't think he's very good either. And I don't want him on our team either. So no, I wouldn't take that deal at all. I wouldn't even go near it. DeJounte Murray has been a big fail and a bust going to Atlanta. And Spurs just wanted to get rid of a problem is basically what they did. And they were smart to do it. Yeah, I'm not with him. And all the stuff he said publicly recently has just made him look worse, in my opinion. Tony Parker's got his own issues. He's an idiot. He cheated on his wife. He did a whole bunch of dumb shit. But that's not one thing I would say, that he's been a horrible mentor or done this kind of stuff. Maybe he wasn't the leader to you that you wanted him to be. Maybe he was being the leader to you that he felt like he needed to do to help you be the best player that you needed to be. I think there's just so many problems with what DeJounte said in the last day or so that, yeah, I never want him on my team. First of all, he's got loose lips, there's sinking ships, and he's not showing any kind of like respect for an elder that was around for him earlier in his career. Maybe he didn't mentor you, but listen to this. Nobody has to mandatory mentor anybody in this league. Listen, there's a lot of people that wish they could have gotten something from an older vet, but they were selfish and they didn't help them out. DeMar DeRozan didn't get a lot of direction from Chris Bosh as a rookie on the Raptors. There's players that just don't feel like sharing and being nice to young players coming up. That's just how it is. And your environment in San Antonio was a very good environment where you became successful because of it. So yeah, you're fucking bullshit, DeJounte, and I don't want to have anything to do with him, Summer. No, I don't. No, I don't. It's not that I like Tony Parker all that much. It's just that I think it's disrespectful for him to just put his name in his mouth right now at this point. It has no bearing on anything. And sure, you go ahead and blame other people for your issues, DeJounte. You go ahead. I don't want him on my team. All right, y'all. Let's go.